Chapter 493. Chapter 494 of the Who Dared to Make a Move? Everyone didn't understand where this young man got his confidence from. First, he acted like a hooligan and bullied someone else's female companion on such an occasion. Then, he beat someone up in public. Did he really not put anyone in his eyes? He was too unscrupulous. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation, and some even wanted to make a move. No one knew Qin Sheng at all, so naturally, no one dared to speak up for him. The person in charge of tonight's gathering had already ordered the security guards to come in and take Qin Sheng to the police station. As for other things, they would wait until tomorrow. Tan Feng did not expect that Qin Sheng would dare to make a move here. This slap sent Tan Feng flying into the crowd. If he had not been supported by others, he would have been in a mess. "You actually dare to make a move?" Zhang Jinlei shouted angrily. Even he did not expect Qin Sheng to be so lawless. Where did he get the courage to make a move here? After beating up Tan Feng, of course, Qin Sheng would not let Zhang Jinlei go. He followed Zhang Jinlei closely. Zhang Jinlei did not believe that Qin Sheng would dare to make a move again. He was provoking everyone present. At that time, he would definitely be attacked by everyone. Then, it would not only be the two of them who would be offended. Therefore, Zhang Jinlei did not retreat. Even if he was beaten up by Qin Sheng, so what? Let him become the public enemy of everyone here. Why not? Of course, the others did not believe that Qin Sheng would dare to make a move again. A few men had already surrounded him. But of course, there were also some who did not care about it. Many things were inevitable. From what Qin Sheng had said just now, they had already heard that this man seemed to have a grudge with Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng, which was why there was a conflict now. Before the truth came to light, they would not rashly come forward. Qin Sheng faced Zhang Jinlei and said, "What can you do to me? What do you want to do?" Although Zhang Jinlei did not back down, he was still a little afraid. Qin Sheng snorted coldly and said, "What? F***ck your mother's legs." After that, Qin Sheng once again, under everyone's gaze as fast as lightning, he kicked Zhang Jinlei's abdomen. Zhang Jinlei's result was the same as Tan Feng's. He was directly kicked into the crowd, almost hitting 2 or 3 onlookers, causing them to curse. Reason? That was impossible. There was no need to reason with such people. Just use your fist to tell them that if they dare to challenge my bottom line, I will make them pay the price. This time, Qin Sheng completely angered the man from the organizer. The man was so angry that he was in a mess. He pointed at Qin Sheng's nose and said angrily, "How dare you?" This good-tempered man was already so angry, let alone the other men present. Moreover, many of Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng's friends were among them. They were extremely angry and wanted to kill Qin Sheng directly. The crowd had already surrounded Qin Sheng. There was no need for Qin Sheng to explain anything to them at all. Qin Sheng was already fighting here without any scruples. What else did they need to be afraid of? "This is between me, Zhang Jinlei, and Tan Feng. Are you sure you want to fight with me?" Qin Sheng remained calm in the face of danger and questioned these people with a serious face. Someone shouted, "I don't care about your business. If you dare to fight here, it means that you don't take us seriously. We can't swallow it." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Sorry, I really don't take you seriously." Arrogant, too arrogant, lawless, and arrogant could not be used to describe this man in front of them. Even if Liu Changxi were here, he would probably mutter, "Brother, can't you keep a low profile?" Therefore, this group of people's anger was completely ignited. Some of them were already ready to fight. At this time, the security guards in charge of tonight's security also arrived. The organizer hurriedly shouted, "Arrest him for me." Many security guards rushed forward, and those men who had originally planned to fight also prepared to take advantage of the situation. At that time, they would secretly punch and kick Qin Sheng to vent their anger. Anyway, no one would see and no one would know. Otherwise, they would not be able to vent their anger in their hearts. Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng, who were originally the protagonists, completely became supporting roles. They laughed and watched Qin Sheng being beaten by the crowd. How could he survive in the future after offending so many people? At this time, they were not angry anymore. Instead, they felt that it was not a loss to be beaten by Qin Sheng. At this moment, it was Qin Sheng's turn to have a headache. Two fists could not defeat four hands, not to mention there were so many people. No matter how powerful he was, he could not defeat so many people. After all, he was not a real martial arts master. Moreover, he could not offend all the people present. How could he survive in Xi'an in the future? The most important thing was Lu Changxi, Big Lu, Uncle Lu, it's time for you to show up. Who dares to fight? An angry shout stunned everyone. Everyone's attention turned to the source of the voice. They saw Lu Changxi slowly walking down from the second floor with his beautiful female companion in his arms, followed by his two friends. These people were the most influential people tonight, so no one dared to disturb them while they were playing billiards inside. Occasionally, some people knew them or could strike up a conversation, so they dared to go in and say hello. Lu Changxi's brilliant appearance instantly relieved Qin Sheng's pressure. The next performance would be handed over to Lu Changxi. Seeing Lu Changxi's appearance, everyone could not help muttering in their hearts. Could it be that this man knew Lu Changxi? From Lu Changxi's words, it was obvious that they knew each other. No wonder this man was so unscrupulous just now. Then, what about the initiators, Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng? When they saw Lu Changxi coming out, their mood instantly fell to the bottom of the valley. It could be said that their hearts were dead. For such a long time, Lu Changxi did not come out and intervene, so they thought that Qin Sheng and Lu Changxi did not know each other. However, when the game was about to end, Lu Changxi just happened to come out. No matter how stupid they were, they knew that Lu Changxi and Qin Sheng must have a relationship. It's over. It's all over for us. Zhang Jinlei collapsed into his friend's arms, his eyes lifeless as he muttered to himself. Once Lu Changxi interfered, they no longer had a chance to fight back, unless they wanted to die. Tan Feng was stunned. He still could not believe this fact. They all knew what the result would be. That was, they had played this game for Qin Sheng tonight, which was equivalent to completely offending Lu Changxi. Next, Lu Changxi's counterattack would be a deadlock that they could not face at all. Who dared to offend Lu Changxi? Who dared to offend the Lu family? Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng could not help but regret their impulsiveness tonight. If they had followed Brother Kai's suggestion and directly negotiated with Qin Sheng, they would not have come to this step. Of course, they did not know that Qin Sheng would not give them a chance at all. At this time, Lu Changxi had already walked into the crowd with his female companion and two friends. Of course, the organizer knew Lu Changxi. There was an obvious change in his attitude. If they were Lu Changxi's friends, of course, he would not dare to hit them. Therefore, he said politely, "Brother Lu, is this your friend?" Although Lu Changxi was on the second floor, he knew the whole thing very clearly. Therefore, he understood the man's attitude just now. After all, he was the organizer tonight. After all, he was also the vice president of Shangxiqing Enterprise. He was also a well-known person in Xi'an. Of course, he would not allow anyone to make trouble here. Therefore, Lu Changxi patted him on the shoulder and said, "Yuan, I'm sorry to trouble you. This is my friend. Brother Lu, it may be a misunderstanding." The man, who was called Yuan by Lu Changxi affectionately, smiled and said. As soon as Lu Changxi appeared, this farce was also over. Lu Changxi smiled playfully and said, "Yuan, whether it is a misunderstanding or not, we will know in a while." After that, Lu Changxi walked to Qin Sheng's side and said very intimately and politely, "Brother, are you okay? If something happens to you here, it will be hard for me to explain it later." Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "I'm okay. I'm just disgusted. Tell me, who bullied you? I want to see who is so bold." Lu Changxi began to play the role and cooperated with Qin Sheng's performance. The conversation between Lu Changxi and Qin Sheng, as well as his attitude toward Qin Sheng, were clearly seen by everyone. They could also feel that Lu Changxi seemed to respect this man a little bit, which meant that this man's background was not something that Lu Changxi dared to offend. At this time, they finally understood why this man was so confident. He really did not take them seriously. Qin Sheng roughly told what had happened. Lu Changxi tried to hold back his laughter. Firstly, Qin Sheng had not made trouble for others yet, but others had made trouble for him first. Secondly, Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng were really mean. They had labeled Qin Sheng as a stinky hooligan. Ha 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 ha. This would make him laugh for a few days. However, this was not the time to laugh. Lu Changxi turned his head and looked at the young woman who was in cahoots with Tan Feng. He squinted at her and said, "Tell me, what on earth happened? If you dare to lie, I will definitely teach you a lesson. There are surveillance cameras here." No matter how stupid the young woman was, she knew that this man in front of her was someone that no one dared to offend, not to mention her man, Tan Feng. At this time, she was so scared that she trembled a little. The young woman did not dare to speak. If she told the truth, Tan Feng would kill her. If she did not tell the truth, this man would not spare her. She could only tilt her head and look at Tan Feng for help, hoping that he could speak for her at this time. "Why the hell are you looking at me?" Seeing that the young woman was looking at him, Tan Feng was so scared that he hurriedly scolded her. At this time, he could only abandon this young woman. Anyway, he was not short of women. The young woman felt so wrong that she did not know what to do. At this time, Lu Changxi would not have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Without hesitation, he slapped the young woman in the face. However, he did not use too much strength. He scolded, "Stinky bitch, how dare you set up my brother with such a beauty? Tell me, who ordered you to do this?" At this time, everyone no longer believed that the man who had just fought was a stinky hooligan who bullied other people's female companions. Instead, they thought that he was a victim who was framed and wronged by others. No wonder he was so angry just now. It was just that the plot had changed a little too fast. The men who had been impulsive just now were somewhat regretful. After all, Lu Changxi had endorsed that man. The young woman was so scared that she broke down. Since Tan Feng had chosen to abandon her and did not intend to support her, she naturally would not bear all the responsibility. Otherwise, she would have to bear all the consequences. Therefore, she looked at Tan Feng again and said viciously, "It was him. He was the one who asked me to frame others." Chapter 494. Impossible. When something happened, most people only saw the surface of the situation or a one-sided statement from one side, and then they would conclude the whole thing. In the end, they would overwhelm people with public opinion, especially in today's developed internet environment. However, when something was exposed to the public, many people would naturally dig into the truth. They would not express their opinions casually just based on others' words, and finally tell the truth to the public. Therefore, a lot of things in today's society were often reversed, which was too much for the eyes to take in. Slowly, when something happened, people would always habitually wait for a period of time, until they understood enough. Then they would judge whether it was good or bad. Tonight's incident was not an exception for most people. There were too many cases of the villain complaining first. Therefore, at this moment, everyone was somewhat angry about what Tan Feng had done. They all stared at him fiercely because he was playing with their kindness. The young woman had no choice but to betray Tan Feng. She was an ordinary woman, and she knew better than anyone else what she was capable of. She could not afford to offend any of the people here. Moreover, there was no real relationship between her and Tan Feng. They were just taking what they needed. Since Tan Feng had abandoned her at this time, she naturally would not bear everything for him. She could do whatever she wanted, as long as she did not get into trouble. Moreover, she was very clear that the man had a grudge against Tan Feng and Zhang Jinlei, and he would not make trouble for her in the end. Hearing the young woman's words, Tan Feng even wanted to kill her. This was really adding insult to injury, which made his already difficult situation even more difficult. Of course, Tan Feng could not sit still and wait for death. He had to put all the blame on the young woman. He said angrily, "You bitch, you seduced a man. Don't *king frame me. I'm not that kind of person." Tan Feng was really self-righteous. The young woman said pitifully, "It was really him who asked me to do that. I don't even know him." Qin Sheng looked at Tan Feng and sneered. "Mr. Tan, don't you know whether you're that kind of person or not?" After that, Qin Sheng looked at Zhang Jinlei, who had already hidden in the crowd, and said with a smile, "Mr. Zhang, what's wrong with you? Where's your fighting spirit just now?" Zhang Jinlei smiled awkwardly. It has nothing to do with me. I don't know what happened. Eldest young Master Zhang, do you really think that I will believe you? Your two families have been in cahoots for so many years. You two have colluded together and done so many heartless things. Can we really not have you? Qin Sheng patted Zhang Jinlei's face and sneered. The sound of pa, pa, pa resounded throughout the whole place. Qin Sheng was really humiliating Zhang Jinlei. However, Zhang Jinlei could only smile apologetically in embarrassment. Now, he especially regretted that he had not investigated Qin Sheng's background thoroughly and attacked the Lin family casually. He reckoned that the car accident that night had completely infuriated Qin Sheng, which led to today's scene. What made Zhang Jinlei even more confused was that the Lin family and the Lu family didn't have much contact. Qin Sheng was just an adopted son of the Lin family. It was even more impossible for him to know Lu Changxi. Taking a step back, even if Qin Sheng knew Lu Changxi, why would Lu Changxi be willing to stand up for him? Could it be that Qin Sheng had an even more powerful background, as they had casually guessed before, but they just did not know about it? The young woman insisted that it was Tan Feng who had asked her to do that. However, Tan Feng refused to admit it. Instead, he said that the young woman had framed him. Obviously, it was impossible for them to figure out what had happened. However, on this occasion, they didn't need to know what had happened. As long as Lu Changxi and Qin Sheng thought it was what had happened, then it was what had happened. Anyway, Tan Feng and Zhang Jinlei had offended Qin Sheng, which meant that they had also offended Lu Changxi. Now, they could only find a way to appease their anger. Otherwise, they would definitely not let this matter go. At that time, the consequences would be unbearable. The person in charge of tonight's gathering pondered for a while. Then, he walked to Lu Changxi and whispered, "Brother Lu, how do you think we should deal with this matter? We can't keep doing this. It's not good for us if it is spread out. It will spoil everyone's mood." Of course, Lu Changxi knew what he meant. He had to show respect to Qin Sheng. However, he still had to ask for Qin Sheng's opinion. So he walked to Qin Sheng and said, "Qin Sheng, what do you think we should do?" Qin Sheng faced Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng and said, "You framed me. If I let you go easily, it will seem that anyone can bully me. However, I'm not a villain who will take advantage of others. How about this? As long as you kneel down and kowtow to me and say sorry, I will pretend that nothing happened tonight. What do you think?" As soon as Qin Sheng said this, Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng's faces changed instantly. This was equivalent to making them lose face in the whole circle of Xian. How could they survive in the future? They were extremely angry, but there was nothing they could do. Everyone knew that Taoists could be killed, but not humiliated. However, if they wanted to bargain with others, they had to have the ability to do so. At this time, no one was willing to stand up for them. After all, it was equivalent to offending Lu Changxi. To be honest, Qin Sheng's conditions were a little harsh, but no one dared to say anything. After all, he had the confidence. Besides, Tan Feng and Zhang Jinlei had offended him first. It was not Qin Sheng who provoked them first. They could only say that they deserved it. They had shot themselves in the foot. Lu Changxi did not think it was too much. After all, what the Tan and Zhang families had done was even worse. So he did not say anything. It was enough for Qin Sheng to vent his anger. The person in charge was somewhat unhappy. However, he was afraid of Lu Changxi and was not sure of Qin Sheng's identity. He could only let Qin Sheng go on like this. Tan Feng and Zhang Jinlei looked at each other. Finally, Zhang Jinlei could not help but say, "Brother Qin, this is a little difficult." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Difficult? Fine, fine, fine. You mean you don't agree? Well, I have another way. That is, you can leave now. I will swallow my anger. However, if something happens between your two families, I can't guarantee it. Based on the strength of your two families, I dare not say that it will be easy for me to kill you. But it seems that it will not be difficult. Moreover, you can't even protect yourselves. At that time, don't say that I didn't give you a chance today." Qin Sheng's words and his momentum at the moment could only be described as arrogant and domineering. This was a naked threat. Moreover, he threatened them in front of everyone. In the eyes of others, Qin Sheng was really a little too arrogant. However, Qin Sheng did not care about their opinions at all. After all, they did not know the grievances between him and the Tan and Zhang families. This time, Tan Feng and Zhang Jinlei had already stopped talking. They were completely caught in a dilemma. If they left, it would be equivalent to giving Qin Sheng a chance. In that case, they would not be able to face Lu Changxi, let alone how Qin Sheng would play them. However, if they did not leave, they could only kowtow and admit their mistakes. They would be completely humiliated by Qin Sheng and become a stain in their lives that could not be erased in the future. Anyone could laugh at them. What should they do? 1 minute to think about it. No matter what the result is, I will leave first. Take your time. Qin Sheng said confidently, not giving them any time to think about it. After that, Qin Sheng turned to Lu Changxi and said, I'm hungry. Let's find a place to eat supper later. Don't choose a high-end restaurant. I like roadside food stalls the most. I haven't eaten barbecue in Xi'an for a long time. If you don't know the place, I can take you to one. Okay. Whatever you say, as long as you are happy. Lu Changxi said half-jokingly. Although Qin Sheng said 1 minute, he did not intend to give him 1 minute. After Lu Changxi finished speaking, he pulled Lu Changxi's shoulder and said, Then let's go. After that, the two of them were ready to leave. Lu Changxi's two friends were also ready to follow them. Of course, they would not miss such an easy opportunity to make friends. Tonight, it could be said that they had witnessed the domineering behavior of the rich playboys from Sizhou City. Just when Qin Sheng and his friends were ready to leave, Zhang Jinlei, who had weighed the pros and cons for a long time, finally took a chance and knelt down with a thump. He said in a trembling voice, Brother Qin, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Why did Zhang Jinlei choose to kowtow and admit his mistake? Because he thought that as long as he kowtowed and admitted his mistake, Qin Sheng would treat it as if nothing had happened. At that time, even if Qin Sheng targeted the two families again, it would not be justifiable. At least tonight, these people had witnessed it. If he did not kowtow and admit his mistake, Qin Sheng and Lu Changxi would play them to death. At that time, the Zhang family would collapse. These so-called dignity and whatnot would be a fart. Those who had offended them in the past would also hit them when they were down. To put it bluntly, as long as one had enough strength, kneeling down today was nothing. It had to be said that Zhang Jinlei was really flexible. In a short time, he had figured out the pros and cons of these things. Seeing that Zhang Jinlei had knelt down, Tan Feng knew that he had no choice. With a bang, he also knelt down. He did not think about anything at all and said without hesitation, Brother Qin, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Qin Sheng looked back at them and smiled playfully. He did not pay attention to them anymore. He pulled Lu Changxi and said, Go. Let's go drink. The group of people swaggered away, completely ignoring Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng who were kneeling on the ground. Anyway, he had achieved his goal tonight. Finally, he completely vented the resentment in his heart, which was extremely satisfying. However, since Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng had knelt down like this, would he really forgive them? Impossible. It was impossible at all. Uncle Lin's company went bankrupt, and he was sent to prison. Annie Wong was hospitalized in a car accident, and Xin was forced to grow up in hardship. If these could be forgiven just by kneeling down, then Qin Sheng's temper was too good. Moreover, this was just Qin Sheng's revenge against the juniors of the Tan family and the Zhang family. There were also the two old farts of the Tan family and the Zhang family. Qin Sheng still had a fight with them later. Qin Sheng, Lu Changxi, and the others had already left. Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng were still kneeling on the ground. Their faces were extremely ugly, and their eyes were incomparably sinister. This kneel had cost them too much. No one knew what to do. More or less, it was somewhat embarrassing. The person in charge of the organizer said helplessly, Everyone, go back. Go back. After everyone had left, Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng stood up alone. Zhang Jinlei gritted his teeth and said, Let's go. If there is anything else, we can talk about it when we get back. Tan Feng clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as he said, I want to kill him. Zhang Jinlei was exasperated and said, If you want to die, don't drag me down with you. Tan Feng did not say anything. He could only leave with Zhang Jinlei without saying goodbye to anyone. The crowd just watched them leave. At this moment, everyone had different thoughts. Chapter 495. Chapter 496 of the WAR Back to Beijing. Qin Sheng's favorite place was the bamboo stick barbecue in the bamboo sea of Chuan, Nan in front of Huaranlongwan on Yintan North Road. They used to eat barbecue here a lot. Later, Qin Sheng would also find time to come back. Besides the good taste, he was more nostalgic. After all, they had too many memories here. Qin Sheng had no time to care about Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng, let alone what they would do next. Did they want to fight to the death? Qin Sheng waited here, but it seemed that they did not have the ability to do so. Humble themselves and beg for mercy? Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng were not qualified unless their old men came. Then Qin Sheng had to ask Uncle Lin for his opinion. He could not say that you almost destroyed the Lin family. Now that he came back to take revenge, you wanted to apologize because you couldn't beat me. How could there be such a cheap deal in the world? In this way, anyone could bully others at will. Outside the food stall, everyone had already ordered. First, a box of beer was served. Drinking was to promote friendship, but chatting was better. The three female companions had already put on their coats. The weather was still a little cold outside, not to mention that several beautiful women were wearing dresses to eat barbecue, which was too eye-catching. Perhaps other tables would not eat and only stare at the beautiful women. Lu Changxi and the other men were dressed more casually, not so formal, so there was no taboo. Qin Sheng was really a little hungry. When accompanying lawyer Zheng to eat, most of the time they were chatting, so he did not eat much. Maybe it was because he had not eaten Xian barbecue for a long time and missed the taste, so he ate like a whirlwind. How could he care about others? He had to fill his stomach first. For native Xian people, there was no one who did not like to eat barbecue. Therefore, although Lu Changxi and the others belonged to the elite class, they often went to eat barbecue in the summer. Eating meat and drinking wine was the joy of life. No one wanted to go against delicious food. The beauties didn't really move their chopsticks, probably to maintain their figures. After all, high-calorie food was their natural enemy. Therefore, they just took care of the few men and obediently poured the wine for them. Are you in a better mood now? Lu Changxi picked up his wine glass and laughed at Qin Sheng. The other two men laughed along. Of course, they already knew that Qin Sheng had a grudge against Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng. As long as Qin Sheng was willing, they were willing to hit him when he was down. Qin Sheng clinked his glass with Lu Changxi's and drank it up in one gulp. He replied, I feel better, more or less. They will probably stop for a while. However, the old ones have not shown up yet, so we still need to rely on Brother Lu's side to continue pressuring them. As for the case, I'm not worried about it all. I've arranged those things, so you don't have to worry about them. Just wait for them to come to us, Lu Changxi said casually while eating the barbecue. Qin Sheng chuckled and said, Brother Lu, do you think they will admit defeat? What can they do if they don't admit defeat? They can't do anything about the case, and they can't do anything about us either. Could it be that they can only sit and wait for death? Lu Changxi said disdainfully. After that, he asked the waiter to bring a few bottles of Ice Peak. This was a special drink of Xian. No other drink could challenge the position of Ice Peak in Xian. Just as the packaging said, people had been drinking it since they were young. This was the special mark of every city. Qin Sheng found it funny as he picked up the food with his chopsticks. Won't they fight to the death? Lu Changxi seemed to have heard a big joke. He laughed and said, It's not a blood feud. Why should they fight to the death? Besides, they don't have the strength to fight. What can they do? Fight with words? What's more, there's such a big family with complicated interests. If you pull one part, the whole body will be affected. It's impossible for them to cut off their own way out. Qin Sheng had thought of all these. However, after Lu Changxi, the local tyrant, said, he felt more relieved. So he said, Then I'll wait for them to find me. I could take some time to go back to Beijing, so I still need Brother Lu to help me take care of the things in Xi'an, especially the hospital. I'm afraid that there will be more problems. Why are you in such a hurry to go back? Lu Changxi asked curiously. He had thought that Qin Sheng would not go back to Beijing until the case was completely over. Qin Sheng explained, "My aunt came back from Canada 2 days ago." The old man urged her to go back and reunite with the family. "Oh, I see. Then you can go back. I'm here. Nothing will happen. We can keep in touch," Lu Changxi said thoughtfully. He had a lot of doubts in his heart. He had never heard that Master Qin had any brothers or sisters. Then where did Qin Sheng's aunt come from? After talking about these trivial things, Qin Sheng accompanied Lu Changxi's 2 friends to play dice. This was the drinking habit of Xian people. As long as there was wine, there must be dice. This was the case no matter what occasion it was. Of course, if you went to those high-end Western restaurants, they would definitely not provide such things. After finishing a box of beer, everyone had no intention to continue. Anyway, they were almost done eating, so they left. Qin Sheng and Lu Changxi's 2 friends added each other's WeChat and phone numbers. Although he would not stay in Xi'an in the future, he would definitely come back often. So sometimes he still needed these local tyrants to take care of some things. On the way back, Qin Sheng was in a good mood. Even Chang Baji could see that. He laughed and said, "I can see that you have gained a lot tonight." Qin Sheng said lightly, "Finally, I've vented my disgust. Things in Xi'an can finally come to an end. Hao Lei has found the lawyer. Let's go there first. Tomorrow, you will accompany me back to Beijing. Let Hao Lei stay in Xi'an." Chang Baji did not ask too much. He just nodded silently. In a business hotel on Xieying Road, Hao Lei sat opposite a bald man with glasses. The man was wearing a suit and a shirt, but his clothes were a little smelly. Hao Lei did not know what he had been through. "Hide. Why don't you hide?" Hao Lei directly kicked the man and scolded him angrily. The man fell on the bed and grimaced in pain, but he still said stubbornly, "You are illegally imprisoning me. I'm going to sue you." Oh, I forgot that you are a lawyer. What qualifications do you have to be a lawyer? You are a disgrace to the legal profession. Someone gave you a little money, and you put down your dignity and bottom line. What qualifications do you have to be a lawyer? Hao Lei scolded him. The lawyer instantly knew that he was in the wrong and stopped talking. Hao Lei spent a lot of time looking for this stupid lawyer. Fortunately, Boss Fan was more powerful. He found this guy in one day, which saved him a lot of trouble. When Qin Sheng arrived, Hao Lei was still scolding the lawyer. The lawyer was already immune to it. He hid there and did not refute or quibble. When Qin Sheng walked in, Hao Lei pointed at the lawyer and said, "This is the guy. We have been looking for him for several days." Qin Sheng nodded slightly and walked over slowly. The lawyer was a little scared and trembled. It seemed that he had done a lot of things on the side. Otherwise, how could he be so cowardly? People who lived in law, as long as they had a sense of righteousness in their hearts, were naturally not afraid of any crooked ways. Unfortunately, this lawyer was not such a person. Qin Sheng said in a low voice, "Lawyer Han, how have you been? Who are you?" "I don't know you," the man who had been the defense lawyer for the Lin family said nervously. Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Lawyer Han, how could you not know who we are? Then tell us why you are hiding and why we are looking for you. Let's get straight to the point. Otherwise, you may suffer a little." Lawyer Han did not say anything. Of course, he knew what was going on. Qin Sheng did not want to be entangled with this lawyer for too long, so he said straightforwardly, "Lawyer Han, since we have found you, I will be straightforward. I have already dealt with the people who gave you the money, so you don't have to worry about anything. Next, just cooperate with us obediently and hand over the case to the new lawyer. I will not make trouble for you. If you don't cooperate, then I can't guarantee that you will do anything extreme. Based on what you have done, don't think about continuing to stay in the lawyer circle in the future." Lawyer Han gritted his teeth and said, "You are threatening me." Qin Sheng snorted and said, "I am threatening you. Do you think that a small character like you can make any big waves?" After saying a few words, Qin Sheng lost his patience. After all, the Tan family and the Zhang family had been dealt with, and he had found this stupid lawyer. The rest of the things could be left to Hao Lei. If he did not cooperate, Hao Lei would naturally have a way. So Qin Sheng said, "Hao Lei, take him to see Lawyer Zheng. If he does not cooperate, don't be polite." "Don't worry, leave it to me," Hao Lei said eagerly. When they came out of Xieying Road, Qin Sheng told Hao Lei that he would go back to Beijing tomorrow. This was also a last-minute decision. Who asked the old man to call suddenly? Qin Sheng could not do anything. It seemed that there was something to announce. So, the things in Xin will depend on you. Take care of Annie Wang. When Xin goes out, it is better to have someone by her side, Qin Sheng said. He was most worried about Xin. Although the Tan family and the Zhang family would not dare to do anything in a short time. Who could guarantee this? Qin Sheng dared not take the risk. Hao Lei patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, "You don't need to say this. I know what to do. But when will you come back?" Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I don't know yet. I will inform you in advance when I come back." "Well, okay." Hao Lei nodded and said. When he returned to the hospital, Qin Sheng felt that Annie Wang was much better today than yesterday. Qin Sheng chatted with Annie Wang for a while and then told her that he would go back to Beijing and would be back in a few days. Annie Wang knew that Qin Sheng was busy, so she did not ask much. "Brother, why did you go back suddenly?" Xin said unhappily. If Qin Sheng was not around, Xin always felt insecure. Qin Sheng touched Xin's hair and said, "Silly girl, don't frown. You are not beautiful anymore. It is not that I will not come back, but I have some things to deal with in Beijing. I have arranged things in Xin. Moreover, Brother Lei is here, so nothing will happen. Then go back quickly. I am afraid to be alone." Xin hugged Qin Sheng and said. Qin Sheng was a little funny. He felt that Xin could not leave him now. Chapter 496. Chapter 497. Death Preparing for a Rainy Day? Qin Sheng didn't go back to Jindi Furong Shurjia to take his luggage. In fact, he didn't have much to bring. The Sihiyuan had everything. So Chang Baji and Hao Lei were already waiting for him at the entrance of the hospital after 6 o'clock. Hao Lei drove them to the airport in person to save trouble. He had not rested well for the past few days. After he got on the plane, he fell asleep immediately. An old man with gray hair sat beside Chang Baji. He took the initiative to chat with Chang Baji. Perhaps he had seen through Chang Baji's extraordinariness. Sometimes Chang Baji seemed to keep people at arm's length, but in fact, he was polite to everyone. He just didn't want to take the initiative to contact anyone. The old man was a Beijinger who came to Xi'an to travel. He was very interested in Zhongnan Mountain and went there for 2 days. Then he chatted with Chang Baji. They talked about the Buddhism and Taoism culture in Zhongnan Mountain, and then talked about the connection between Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. There were only 3 of them in the first-class cabin. Chang Baji and the old master chatted happily. Even the air stewardesses could not help laughing. They all sighed that the topics discussed by cultured people were really different. In the end, they exchanged contact information with each other. The old master took the initiative to invite Chang Baji to visit his house when he was free after returning to Beijing. In the Hutong Sihiyuan on Dangshiku Street, Zhao Anji checked out of the Waldorf's room and returned to the Qin family Sihiyuan after returning from Xi'an with her daughter. After all, this was the ancestral house of the Qin family. It had been owned by several owners until Qin Chang'an made a fortune. Every family's ancestors were once rich, and every family's ancestors had fallen. Some families would stand up again, and some would completely disappear in the torrent of history. The Qin family belonged to the former. In the early morning, Qin Sheng was sleeping on the plane. Qin Ran and Yaya were also sleeping soundly. Yaya's original name was Qin Jing. Jing meant beauty. This name was given by Old Master Qin when he was alive. It was just that Qin Changxing and Zhao Anji didn't have children. Qin Chang'an and Qin Changxing's generation all had 2 character names. When it came to Qin Ran and Qin Sheng's generation, they all had single character names. This was the tradition of the Qin family. Qin Ran had been in Beijing for the past few days. Last night, the sisters had gone out to play for half the night, so they were still sleeping. Qin Chang'an and Zhao Anji already had the habits of the elderly. They slept early and got up early. At this moment, the 2 of them had just finished their morning exercises. Qin Chang'an was jogging in the gym, while Zhao Anji was practicing Tai Chi in the yard. The servants placed the breakfast under the pavilion in the yard. After taking a shower, The two of them sat opposite each other. Zhao Anji asked casually, "What time is Shang Er's flight?" Qin Chang'an picked up the cup of soy milk and replied, "She will arrive at 10 o'clock. I have already sent someone to pick her up." He respected his sister-in-law very much. Although she had been staying in Canada all these years, she had helped him a lot. She had maintained many relationships with his elder brother. She had been very important to him when his career had just started. Zhao Anji said emotionally, "After so many years, our family is finally reunited. If Big Brother can come back from Mount Wutai, then we can really reunite," Qin Chang'an said thoughtfully. Speaking of Qin Changxing, Zhao Anji was very unhappy. She said, "Chang'an, can we not mention him? He is a coward. He disgraced the Qin family. Our Zhao family is also disgraced. Big sister, Big Brother also has a lot of difficulties. You have to understand him. This is his choice, and we have to respect him," Qin Chang'an said earnestly. He did not understand in the past. Later, he gradually understood many things. However, he knew that Big Sister had not forgiven Big Brother for so many years. Zhao Anji put down the orange juice she had picked up and said, "He has difficulties? What difficulties can he have? How do we live in Canada all these years? He is happy to stay in that shabby temple alone. You don't need to say anything. If you continue, I am afraid we will quarrel again." Okay. I will stop. Big Sister, calm down." Qin Chang'an also did not know whether to laugh or cry. Every time they talked about Big Brother, they would part on bad terms. However, this time was better. At least Big Sister could take the initiative to go to Mount Wutai to see Big Brother. This was the first time in more than 20 years, which showed that Big Brother was still in her heart. It was just that she was too resentful. Zhao Anji was so angry that she lost her appetite. After drinking a glass of orange juice, she ate nothing. After a while, she frowned and said, "Chang'an, things have really reached the point of no return?" The smile on Qin Chang'an's face froze, and then his expression looked very serious. He thought for a long time and said, "Not yet, but it is not a bad thing to prepare for a rainy day. If it really comes to that, there will be no chance to make this move again." Zhao Anji let out a long sigh. This was also one of the important reasons why she suddenly returned to China. It was said that prosperity leads to decline. Qin Chang'an's business empire could be said to have reached the peak of private enterprises today. However, the sudden crisis this time was far from as simple as she had imagined. Because the general environment was more serious, it depended on what Qin Chang'an would do next. The two did not talk too much in detail. Qin Chang'an had been busy with this, and Zhao Anji had also heard a lot of news from various sources. They both knew the real situation, but they still needed to work hard step by step to know the result. At this time, Qin Ran and Qin Jing got up. These two sisters had been sleeping in the same bed these days. It seemed that they had endless things to talk about. Qin Chang'an had never told Qin Ran that she had such a sister. He really hid it well. Qin Ran found her brother and had one more sister. Needless to say, she was very happy. "Dad, Annie, why did you get up so early?" Qin Ran went downstairs and greeted them with a smile. Recently, she had been too busy in Shanghai. These days, she went back to Beijing to relax. In particular, she enjoyed playing with her sister Qin Jing. This was a different feeling from being with her brother. The two girls could go shopping for a whole day. Zhao Anji said dotingly, "When did you come back last night? In the future, come back earlier. Girls, don't be too crazy." Qin Jing walked over and hugged Zhao Anji from behind. "Mom, we only go crazy once or twice. It's not like we come back so late every night. Aren't we too happy to see our sister?" Zhao Anji said helplessly, All right. Don't act like a spoiled child. Look at how sloppy you are. Go wash up, change your clothes, and eat breakfast. Sheng will be back soon." Qin Ran and Qin Jing did not know that Qin Sheng would come back today. So Qin Jing said in surprise, "Brother will be back soon? Why would I lie to you?" Zhao Anji said with a smile. Qin Jing was so happy when she heard the news. She turned around and ran upstairs. Qin Ran walked over and asked confusedly, "Dad, is the matter in Shin over? Why did you suddenly let my brother come back?" Qin Chang'an shook his head and said, "The matter in Xin can't be finished in a short time. After all, the trial will take a long time. But the early things should be almost done. The main purpose of letting him come back is to let our family reunite. At the same time, I have something to announce." Qin Ran said, "Oh," casually, but she was still thinking in her heart. What is it that needs Qin Sheng to come back to announce? When Qin Sheng just got off the plane, in a villa community at the foot of Mount Zhongnan, in Xi'an, several men from the Tan and Zhang families gathered together to discuss how to deal with this crisis. The villa was called Xi'an Yard. Nowadays, there were more and more villa projects with this name. But they all had one thing in common, which was that they were extremely expensive. Xi'an Yard was close to the famous Asian golf course in Xi'an, so it was very suitable for these high-end people to relax on weekends. In the living room, the elders of the Tan and Zhang families, who were over 50 years old, were sitting on the sofa. The other 6 young people were scattered around the living room, including Tan Feng, Tan Zhen, and Zhang Jinlei. They were the direct descendants of the 2 families. The other 3 men were cousins of the Tan and Zhang families, who had high hopes for them. A middle-aged man with slightly white hair on the sofa scolded loudly. "Shameful, really shameful. You've completely disgraced the Tan and Zhang families. You don't deserve to be named Tan or Zhang. I really don't know how you still have the face to kneel here. Why don't you go to hell?" Who were they scolding? Of course, they were scolding Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng, who had lost all the prestige and fame that the Tan and Zhang families had accumulated over the years. Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng knew that it would not take long for the whole city to know about what happened last night. Instead of letting the elders know about it passively, it was better for them to take the initiative to confess. No matter if they were beaten or scolded, they had to admit it. That was why this internal family meeting was held today. "Old Tan, calm down, calm down. Don't be angry and harm your health." A middle-aged man wearing glasses next to him comforted him. He was relatives of the 2 families. He was a distant cousin of the Tan family. He was closer to the Zhang family because he was Zhang Jinlei's uncle. However, it was more of a relationship of interest. After all, he had some status in the officialdom. Naturally, the Tan and Zhang families could go so far because of him. Of course, he would be rewarded. Zhang Jinlei's father sat on the sofa opposite him. He reprimanded with a gloomy face. "This is the result of asking me to hand over everything to you. How can I still keep my face in the future?" Tan Feng did not dare to refute the old master. Zhang Jinlei said stubbornly, "There are some things that we did not expect. If you think you can solve this problem, I won't interfere in the future." "You unfilial son." Old Zhang was so angry that he stood up and was about to beat Zhang Jinlei. The 2 young men next to him quickly stopped him. Although they also had the mentality of watching a joke, Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng were used to being domineering in this big family these years. This time they fell hard. But more than that, they were worried about the interdependence. If the Tan and Zhang families fell, they would not have a good life in the future. Zhang Jinlei's uncle's name was Wang Shouwang. He had already retired and was working in the Provincial People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC. It was said that he was also involved in the previous incident, but no one knew how he managed to escape unscathed in the end. If he had fallen, the Tan and Zhang families would be in an even more difficult situation. "You too, tell me in detail. What on earth is going on?" Wang Shouwang said resentfully. But he knew the ability of these 2 juniors, which meant that the other side was not simple. A few minutes later, Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng told him everything, including Liu Chanshi's involvement and their car accident to threaten Qin Sheng, and so on. After listening to them, Wang Shouwang said, "You mean that the Liu family is pushing this matter?" Zhang Jinlei added salt and vinegar. "Uncle, this is just my guess. But without the Liu family's tacit consent, Liu Chanshi would not have acted recklessly." Wang Shouwang sighed and said, "If the Liu family is really involved, this matter will be really difficult to handle." Chapter 497. Chapter 498 of The Past and Be Confused. Liu Chanshi's sudden appearance made the Tan family and the Zhang family nervous in an instant. They also focused their attention on the Lu family, forgetting about Qin Sheng. If Qin Sheng knew about this, he would probably not know whether to laugh or cry. Was he that insignificant? Tan Feng and Tan Zhen's father, Tan Hongping, Zhang Jinlei's father, Zhang Deshun, and Zhang Jinlei's uncle, Wang Shouwang. The three of them had teamed up to set up a dead end for Lin Shi. Not only did they make Lin Shi bear a huge debt, which eventually led to the company's bankruptcy and liquidation, but they also sent Lin Shi to prison on various charges. Most importantly, they had a good relationship with Lin Shi back then, and they cooperated with each other a lot. This was also their opportunistic method. After all, Lin Shi trusted them too much. The Lin family had fallen, and these three had indeed profited greatly. The companies and real estate projects under the Lin family had all been divided among themselves. In the past few years, their lives had been very interesting, and their strength had increased a lot. However, in today's society, most of the time, it didn't take that long, not to mention that they had many original sins. For example, in just 4 years, everything had quietly changed. Do you think this is just Lu Changshi's personal behavior, or does Lu Changshi represent the Lu clan behind him? Wang Shouwang was the brains of the Tan clan and the Zhang clan, so he hit the nail on the head. Everyone was stumped by this question. Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng could not figure out what was going on. Wu Song, Zhang Jinlei's brother-in-law, broke the silence and said, "Uncle-in-law, I have met Lu Changshi a few times and we have many mutual friends. From our conversations, I can tell that Lu Changshi is not a simple person. He is very sly in dealing with people. I think if he dares to stand up for Qin Sheng, he must have considered many things. He knows better than anyone who he represents. Hence, I don't think it is that simple." Tan Hongping seemed to be deep in thought as he said, "What Wu Song said makes sense. I've also seen that young man, Lu Changshi, a few times. He's definitely not a simple character. We have to give this matter further thought." At this moment, Zhang Deshun had no time to criticize his son, who had made the Zhang family lose face. After all, he knew better than anyone else what was important. Consequently, he echoed, "We can't rely on guessing. 2 results mean that we have to have 2 different countermeasures. Brother-in-law, do you have any way to sound out the Lu family and confirm whether it is the Lu family who is behind this or just Lu Changshi's idea? If it is Lu Changshi's idea, we don't have to worry too much. Naturally, he won't get too involved. If it's the Lu family's intention, you can figure out what they want to do. As long as they don't get involved in this matter, we can accept any price." Wang Shouwang nodded and said, "I can give it a try." After all, Wang Shouwang was the only one who could get in touch with the Lu family. He had been in the officialdom for so many years. He must have some resources to be able to land safely, so he was the only one who could do this. At this time, Wu Song, who had been leaning against the glass door of the balcony, opened his mouth again and said, "Uncle, Dad, Uncle Tan, did we make a mistake?" Zhang Deshun frowned and said, "Wu Song, what do you mean? Dad, we have to figure it out. It is not the Lu family who wants to make trouble for us. It is Qin Sheng who wants to take revenge for the Lin family. Where does he get the confidence and strength to do so? Everything that happened so far seemed to be done by Qin Sheng. Even if these things are done by the Lu family, whether it is Lu Changshi or the Lu family, why do they have to deal with us for a young man? We have to figure this out," Wu Song said after thinking carefully. This was what he thought. Sometimes, some things were very simple, but most people just had to think about it so complicated. It was like when it was all for a certain benefit, you could think about its direct gains and losses, but some people just had to take 7 or 8 turns before they went to seek proof. Upon hearing this, Tan Feng hurriedly said, "What Wu Song said? You don't know the process of what happened last night." Lu Changshi asked Qin Sheng for his opinion at every turn. It seemed that he respected him a lot. Tan Hongping snorted and said, "Then after investigating for so long, what on earth did you find out?" Tan Feng was instantly speechless, because apart from those things that could be found out by anyone, they had made no progress so far. After all, their power was limited to the province. Zhang Jinlei said very cleverly, "If we can't find anything, it means that he is not simple. We can't underestimate him." This matter made the whole big family anxious. Wang Shouwang was a little upset. After calming down, he arranged, "Okay, don't say anything. You just do as I say. Recently, no one should provoke Qin Sheng. If you dare to mess around, don't blame me for not warning you. You have to bear all the consequences. Secondly, we will deal with the case normally. Don't get involved randomly. I already know that a certain main leader in the province is watching this case. You guys think it over. Leave the Liu family to me. I will find a way to contact them and figure out their intentions. Finally, if all other methods don't work, we will directly find Qin Sheng and lay our cards on the table. We will try our best to minimize our losses." Wang Shouwang was indeed a military counselor. He sorted out everything very clearly and helped the Tan and Zhang families sort out their thoughts. They knew what to do and what not to do. After hearing Wang Shouwang's words, Tan Hongping and Zhang Deshun nodded silently. Then they warned their children and nephews, if anyone dares to mess around, they have to bear the consequences. You two disappointing things, get up. You're not allowed to go out for a week. Think about it. Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng heaved a long sigh of relief. This matter was finally over. Not going out was also a good opportunity for them to lie low. Not to mention that Liu Changshi would cause trouble for them. They really didn't have the face to go out these few days. At the Beijing airport, Qin Sheng did not expect that the young man who came to pick him up was Liu Yang, who was more handsome than him when he went back to the Sihiyuan for the first time. He heard from his sister that Liu Yang was the representative of the young and strong in the group. He had a very rich resume and was highly valued by Qin Chang'an. After seeing Qin Sheng, Liu Yang bowed politely and said, "Young master." When he lowered his head, his eyes were somewhat complicated. As for why, only he knew. Qin Sheng did not have much contact with Liu Yang. He was neither disgusted nor close to him. He just chuckled and said, "Brother Liu, I did not expect that you would come pick me up. Sorry to trouble you." Liu Yang said calmly, "Young master, you are too polite. It is just a small thing. Moreover, it was arranged by Master Qin." "Okay, let's go." Qin Sheng did not say much and directly walked out of the airport. Liu Yang followed Qin Sheng and fought side by side with Chang Baji. The other two bodyguards followed closely behind. On the way back to the Sihiyuan, Liu Yang lowered his attitude and took the initiative to be the driver. Chang Baji sat in the passenger seat and closed his eyes to rest. Sitting in the back, Qin Sheng chatted with Liu Yang casually. Most of his questions were about the company, and he also knew what Liu Yang was responsible for in the company. After talking about those trivial things, Qin Sheng asked with concern, "My aunt and sister are in the Sihiyuan?" Liu Yang answered truthfully, "Yes, Aunt Zhao and the others are waiting in the Sihiyuan. So is the eldest lady. My sister hasn't returned to Shanghai yet?" Qin Sheng was a little surprised. He had not contacted his sister these days, thinking that she had gone back to Shanghai. After all, there were more things in Shanghai. Liu Yang said casually, "Not yet. There are more important things in the group these days." "Brother Liu, I heard that you like my sister. Did you also enter the group for her?" Qin Sheng suddenly said without warning. Liu Yang was startled. He did not know what Qin Sheng meant. His brain immediately made various reactions and judgments. Finally, he said, "To be honest, I used to like her, but I gave up later." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Why did you give up? My sister is still single. I never despise people who say that I am a toad lusting for swan meat. I like this kind of thing purely because I like her, and it has nothing to do with other things. You can't stop me from liking her just because of her identity. It doesn't make sense. Besides, when I pursued the eldest lady, Master Qin never objected," Liu Yang said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. After hearing that, Qin Sheng nodded and said, "You are right. Like is like, and like is just like. It has nothing to do with otherworldly things. However, you still did not tell me why you gave up." Liu Yang almost said, "Brother," but he held back and replied, "Young master, I have been pursuing her for 5 years, but there is no response at all. I am so tired that I have to give up." Hearing this extremely wronged words, Qin Sheng could not help but laugh. He did not expect that Liu Yang, who looked very serious, was quite interesting. Lu Yong said helplessly. Young master, is it so funny? Qin Sheng also felt that he was building his happiness on other people's pain, so he stopped laughing in a hurry and said, Sorry, I couldn't help it. By the way, Brother Lu, don't call me young master. Who started it? Just call me Qin Sheng in the future. Okay, I also feel it is quite awkward, Lu Yong said. At present, not many people knew this young master of the group, except for those shareholders, board members, and senior executives. Qin Sheng asked with interest, Brother Lu, do you know why the old man suddenly called me back this time? Is there anything else important? Lu Yong, who was driving, blinked a little, but Qin Sheng did not see it. Qin Chang'an sent Lu Yong to pick Qin Sheng up for a deeper reason. Otherwise, he could have asked Nangong, who was more familiar with Qin Sheng, to pick him up. Lu Yong said casually, I don't know about this. Master Qin did not tell me much. Qin Sheng did not continue to ask. Maybe Lu Yong really did not know. He could only go back and ask others. Lu Yong seemed to think of something and said, Qin Sheng, I heard from Master Qin that after you finished the advanced course in Tsinghua University, he wanted you to take the postgraduate examination of Tsinghua University this year. I guess Master Qin has not told you yet. Qin Sheng was a little surprised and said, Why does he want me to take the postgraduate examination all of a sudden? Qin Sheng, you may not understand what Master Qin means. Our group has always had various cooperative relationships with Tsinghua University's School of Economics and Management. Our donations and sponsorships to Tsinghua University's School of Economics and Management alone have already exceeded hundreds of millions of yuan. The graduate student is actually not important. What matters is the identity of Tsinghua University's School of Economics and Management. Lu Yong explained to Qin Sheng in detail. It was not good for him to point out some things, so depended on Qin Sheng's ability to understand. Although Qin Sheng had all kinds of doubts, he was not anxious. Instead, he asked, Brother Lu, did you also graduate from Tsinghua University? Of course, Qin Sheng knew the relationship between Chang and department and Tsinghua University. Otherwise, how could Qin Chang'an send him to this advanced course? His sister graduated from Tsinghua University, and she studied for a master's degree. Her supervisor was famous for a long time, and Qin Sheng had heard a lot of things from his sister. Lu Yong did not feel proud because of this identity. He said lightly, Well, I also graduated from Tsinghua University, but I'm a few years older than her, so I am her senior. Qin Sheng nodded and did not say anything, falling into meditation. Chapter 498. Lu Yong had become one of the core figures of the young and strong in the group. This identity naturally helped him a lot. After all, there were many talented students from Tsinghua University in the group. Lu Yong was the president of the Student Union of Tsinghua University. He could have entered the official career with this identity. However, under the advice of several teachers, he finally entered the Chang'an department. In the beginning, Lu Yong did not feel that this identity brought him any convenience. It was nothing more than a closer relationship with the leaders and professors in the school. There were many students in high positions, and he could learn a lot from them. After working, he could have a lot of brothers from the same school. They could help each other, which would be faster. However, when he gradually gained a certain position in the group and began to contact various parties, and more often than not, he realized how important this relationship was. This was because he found that many big shots came from Tsinghua University or had various connections with Tsinghua University. This was also the main reason why he understood why Qin Chang'an wanted Qin Sheng to go to Tsinghua University for advanced studies in economics and management, and also let Qin Sheng do postgraduate studies in Tsinghua University. Before Qin Sheng returned to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Qin Ran and Qin Jing were waiting at the door. The two sisters became the beautiful scenery in the alley. Unfortunately, there were not many passers-by in the alley, so they could not enjoy the scenery. Sister, is it brother? Qin Jing saw a car turning into the alley and asked again. She had asked this question 3 times, but Qin Ran was not impatient. This time, Qin Ran recognized the car and knew it was Lu Yang's car. So she pulled Qin Jing and said happily, Well, it's okay this time. Your silly brother is back. Last time when they met for the first time in Xin, they said goodbye in a hurry. Qin Jing still had a lot of things to say to her brother. For example, these days when she got along with her sister, they talked about their life in Canada every day. She asked her sister how she had been all these years and so on, so as to make up for the emotional distance caused by time and space. Before Liu Yang's car came to a complete stop, Qin Jing had already run over. As soon as Qin Sheng got out of the car, she gave him a big hug, which startled him. He was not used to Ya's foreign enthusiasm. "Brother, you're finally back. I missed you so much," Qin Jing said excitedly. Her feelings were very pure, and her words were also moved by her heart. She wasn't being perfunctory or courteous. She was as simple as a child. Qin Sheng patted Qin Jing's shoulder and said, "Yeah, I missed you too. I'm back now, aren't I? Brother, can you stay for a few more days this time? I have a lot of things to tell you," Qin Jing said pitifully as she let go of him. No one would be able to reject such a request. Just Ya's adorable face was enough to melt any man's heart. On the other side, Chang Baji and Liu Yang had already come down. Qin Ran nodded slightly to Chang Baji as a greeting. She knew that this man was not talkative, so she did not say much. Instead, she said to Liu Yang, "Thank you. Ran, don't regard me as an outsider." Liu Yang called Qin Ran Miss in front of others, but he called her Ran, whom he was more familiar with. He was a man who had pursued Qin Ran for 5 years, so he was very familiar with her. Qin Ran said disapprovingly, "Are you treating me like an outsider? It's not too much to say thank you." Liu Yang shrugged and said, "I can't out-talk you." At this time, Qin Sheng walked over and greeted Qin Ran with a smile. "Sister." Qin Ran touched Qin Sheng's head as if she was facing a child. No matter Qin Sheng or Qin Jing, they were all children in front of her. After all, she was the eldest grandson of the Qin family, so she naturally had to take care of her younger brothers and sisters in the future. Liu Yang left after saying hello to everyone. Qin Ran led Qin Sheng and Qin Jing into the Sihiyuan, and Chang Baji followed them. Qin Sheng planned to let Lao Chang live in the Sihiyuan these days, so that it would be too troublesome for him to run around. Chang Baji had no problem with this. He did not feel uncomfortable at all. While Qin Chang'an and Zhao Anji were chatting in the living room, Gong Sun urged the kitchen to prepare lunch. This was the first time for the Qin family to reunite, which was the most important thing. There could not be any mistakes. It would be better if the uncle could come back from Mount Wutai. In the living room, seeing that the only grandson of the Qin family had come back, Zhao Anji stood up slowly and walked over. She said, "Sheng, this time you won't doubt me anymore, will you?" Qin Sheng laughed involuntarily and said, "Auntie, you must be joking. I definitely won't in the future." Qin Jing walked over and held Zhao Anji's arm. She said, "Mom, don't make fun of my brother. He didn't know these things before, did he?" Zhao Anji found it funny and said, "Child, it has only been a few days, and you already care about your brother. I have raised you for so many years in vain." Alas, Qin Jing had no choice but to continue acting like a spoiled child in front of Zhao Anji. At this time, Qin Ran also held Zhao Anji's other arm. One was her biological daughter, and the other was her biological niece. Zhao Anji couldn't stop laughing. The Qin family, which used to be incomparably cold, finally had some warmth now. These happy laughter would continue in the future. Zhao Anji was already imagining that when Qin Ran, Qin Sheng, and Yaya got married and had children, the Sihiyuan would be really lively. Qin Chang'an, who was standing not far away, smiled from ear to ear. His eyes were full of love, which could be regarded as relieving his fatigue during this period. Facing Qin Chang'an, his father, Qin Sheng still could not call him dad, but their relationship had been much better. Qin Chang'an walked over and said, "How was the matter of the Lin family handled?" Qin Sheng said honestly, "Just waiting for the court session. There are some things that you should tell me. You are my only son. Don't feel that it is troublesome. It is natural for a son to trouble his father," Qin Chang'an said lightly. His tone was very casual, and his expression was not serious. It could be seen that he really cared about Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng immediately guessed what was going on. He said softly, It must be Lu Changxi who told you about what happened in Xi'an. Such a big thing happened. How would he not tell you? If something happened to you in Xi'an, how would he explain it to me? Qin Chang'an did not deny it. The reason why Lu Changxi's attitude changed that night was that Qin Chang'an had given him an affirmative word. After all, it was just Qin Ran who said hello to him. Qin Sheng said casually, "Now it's all right. Okay, I have already told the Lu family about the rest of the trivial things. The two families will not have a good life in the future. You just need to wait for the court session. As for the result, don't worry about it." Qin Chang'an said firmly. Of course, he had his own reasons for wanting to solve the matter in Xi'an quickly. Time was running out. He did not want Qin Sheng to waste too much time on these small things. Qin Sheng was a little surprised. When he wanted to say something, Qin Chang'an had already walked over and said hello to Changbaji. Qin Sheng smiled awkwardly. Was he doubting his ability? The lunch was very sumptuous, but it was not important. What mattered was the significance of this lunch. The Qin family, which had been fragmented for more than 20 years, finally reunited today. Although there were many regrets, it was much better than before. The two elders sat in the seats of honor. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng sat next to Qin Chang'an. Naturally, Qin Jing sat next to Zhao Anji. Except for their big family, there were no outsiders. Gongsun took Changbaji to the dining room outside. They had a lot of topics to talk about, so they could talk together. Zhao Anji could not help but say, "I remember the last time we reunited was at the New Year's Eve dinner more than 20 years ago. I did not expect that it would be more than 20 years later when we reunited again. Things are really unpredictable. It's a pity that Xinghuan is not here." Time flew. In the blink of an eye, these things had become memories. More than 20 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Many elders had passed away, including old Master Qin. Hearing this, Qin Ran was a little moved. She said, "Auntie, although so many years have passed, I know that Mom has always been by our side. She will see it and feel happy." Zhao Anji knew that Qin Ran was very sensible, but she felt a little guilty. So she sighed and said, Ran, Sheng I am very happy that you are so sensible. But I feel sorry for you. I have been too selfish these years. I have been staying in Canada. Your mother is not here. Logically, I should take care of you for her, so that she could be completely relieved. So I hope you can forgive me." Qin Ran hurriedly said, "Auntie, don't say that. We can understand some things." "Mom, it's all my fault." Qin Jing also took the initiative to take the responsibility. She felt that her mother had been staying in Canada because she wanted to take care of her. Zhao Anji waved her hand and said, "Let's not talk about this. It's all in the past. But I have decided that I will not leave again this time. In the future, Yaya and I will live in Beijing. In this way, our family will never be separated again." Hearing this news, Qin Ran was a little excited. "Auntie, is what you said true?" Qin Jing did not know this decision in advance. She was shocked and said, "Mom, are we really going to live in Beijing in the future? Haven't you always wanted to come back?" "Of course, I will fulfill your wish," Zhao Anji said with a smile. Qin Jing was so excited that she did not know what to say. She directly hugged Zhao Anji. She had wanted to come back because this was her motherland, her hometown. She was just a wanderer in Canada. She could find a sense of belonging here. Moreover, now that she had reunited with her family, she was even more unwilling to go back. Qin Sheng did not expect that Auntie would suddenly announce such a decision. Looking at Yaya's happy face, Qin Sheng was very pleased. This big family was getting warmer and warmer. Among them, only Qin Chang'an knew what was going on. During this period, he had talked about many things with his sister-in-law. This was just one of them. Qin Ran took the initiative to hold up a glass of red wine and said with a smile, "Dad, Auntie, should we celebrate?" "Of course we should celebrate such a big event." Qin Chang'an, who had been silent and just looked at the children, said lightly, "But I have something to announce." Qin Ran was surprised and said, "Dad, what's the matter? Why do you look so serious?" "Gongsun," Qin Chang'an shouted. Gongsun, who had been standing outside the dining room after making arrangements for Changbaji, walked in slowly at this time with a few documents. Qin Chang'an took the documents from Gongsun's hand and waved his hand. Gong Sun left. He looked at the crowd and said slowly, "These are 3-share transfer agreements. I'm going to transfer a part of my shares of Chong into the 3 of you. Now it will take effect after you sign it." Chapter 499. Since Zhao Anji returned to China, Qin Chang'an had talked with her about many things. It was Qin Chang'an's suggestion that Zhao Anji should settle down in Beijing. Of course, Qin Chang'an had also discussed with Zhao Anji about the transfer of shares. Moreover, there were many other things to do. In fact, Qin Chang'an was the founder of the Chong and Group. No matter what happened during this period, it had nothing to do with the other members of the Qin family. It was understandable for Qin Chang'an to transfer shares to Qin Sheng and Qin Ran. One was his biological son who was destined to take over in the future, and the other was his biological daughter who had long taken over the family business. Although Qin Jing was his niece by blood, many people might not understand why he would transfer shares to her. Qin Chang'an valued family. He only had one brother and one niece. It was understandable for him to transfer some shares to her, which could be regarded as a guarantee for her life. Moreover, over the years, his brother and sister-in-law had helped him a lot. Although one of them was in Mount Wutai and the other was in Canada, they still had some connections. Qin Ran couldn't sit still anymore. She stood up and said, "Dad, what are you doing?" Qin Chang'an motioned for her to sit down and said with a smile, "I'm almost 60 years old. You've all grown up. It's time for you to take over. But this is only a part of the shares. I'll put most of the shares into the family trust and charity fund. Although I'm doing this, it doesn't mean that I'll let go and retire behind the scenes. It's still early for me to retire. Senior Lee will retire at 90 years old. I'll be 80 years old at least." At this critical moment, Qin Chang'an seemed to be making arrangements for his funeral. How could Qin Ran and Qin Sheng not be nervous and overthink? "Dad, is there something that you don't want to tell us?" Qin Ran frowned and asked. Qin Chang'an shook his head and said with a smile, "Don't think too much. I'm just giving you some shares. You're not outsiders." Ran, didn't I give you shares before? Why are you so shocked this time?" At this time, Zhao Anji echoed, Ran, don't think too much. This is just a normal action. Your dad wants you to participate in the management of the company at a deeper level." Qin Jing was a loss. It was understandable that her uncle would transfer shares to her brother and sister. After all, this group was founded by him. It took him more than 20 years to get to where he was today. She still remembered the grand occasion when he gave a speech at her alma mater. At that time, he was her idol, who she had been chasing and looking up to all her life. However, now her uncle wanted to transfer shares to her. She knew that it would be an astronomical figure. She knew that her uncle wanted to transfer shares. "Silly child, don't think too much. This is just a gift from your uncle for you to come back to China," Zhao Anji said. Qin Chang'an took out a pen, handed it to Qin Ran, and said, "All right, sign it now. Otherwise, the dishes will be cold." After hesitating for a while, Qin Ran finally took the pen. She didn't even look at the specific number of shares on it. She quickly signed her name at the place where it should be signed. Qin Sheng had been silent all this while. He always felt that this was too abnormal. Of course, he also knew what this meant. It meant that from a loser like him, he would become a super tycoon with a net worth of hundreds of millions or even billions. This was something that he had never dared to imagine before. To sign or not to sign? Since his sister had already signed it, of course, Qin Sheng had no chance to refuse. If anyone was present, they would think that this belonged to him, because he was Qin Chang'an's son and the future of the Qin family. Therefore, Qin Sheng also signed it. Finally, it was Qin Jing's turn. She signed her name anxiously. Zhao Anji smiled and heaved a long sigh of relief. This could be considered as the dowry given by the Qin family to their daughter. Although compared to Qin Ran and Qin Sheng's share, this dowry was not heavy. She was already satisfied. After the 3 children had signed, Qin Chang'an called Gong Sun in again and took out several documents. There were still some procedures to be handled later, such as the lawyers, the board of directors, and so on. However, the children did not need to worry about these. After Gong Sun left again, Qin Chang'an chuckled and said, All right, it's rare for our family to get together. Let's not talk about these trivial things anymore. Let's eat. Zhao Anji raised her glass and said, then let's celebrate again. Because of this matter, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran had a lot on their minds, so they had no appetite. Although Zhao Anji and Qin Chang'an took the initiative to start a topic to ease the atmosphere, it was still a little weird. After dinner, Qin Ran and Qin Sheng walked to the side hall at the same time. Qin Sheng took the initiative to ask, Sister, what happened to the company? Why do I feel that the old man is making arrangements for his funeral? Although the words, making arrangements for his funeral, did not sound good, Qin Ran thought so too. She said in a low voice, something happened to the company. One of the old man's close friends got into trouble. This close friend is in a high position, so a lot of things are involved in the company. In addition, the national policy has changed recently, especially in terms of overseas investment and financial control. These were the previous focuses of our company. Now, they are naturally affected, so we have to shrink our front line and withdraw funds. Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, I know all these. I also know that a lot of big shots in the financial system have been changed recently, and many big shots have fallen. Will these affect us? Qin Ran narrowed her eyes and hesitated for a moment. There are some effects, but I don't think it's serious. Now we have to change the strategic direction of the group from the financial sector to the real economy. What we lack most is time. The reason why Qin Ran hesitated was that she was not sure how big the impact would be. She said that just to comfort Qin Sheng. However, she knew that the few shareholders of the group all had powerful backgrounds. This was also one of the reasons why the group had been ahead of others all these years. It was because some of the policies were almost tailor-made. Why time? Qin Sheng was confused. Qin Ran explained, because once the policy changes, we will be the first to be affected. Then we will be in trouble. Then is it because of these things that the old man did this? Qin Sheng asked again. Qin Ran shook her head and said, there are some things that I don't know. The old man never tells me. If you have a chance, you can ask him. The brother and sister stopped talking, but they knew that the situation of the Qin family seemed to be more and more worrying. Was it really a cycle of prosperity and decline? When the old man left with Qin Sheng, the Qin family went from the bottom to the top. Now that Qin Sheng was finally back, was the Qin family going to go from the top to the bottom again? At this time, Qin Jing ran over and shouted, Sister, brother, uncle wants you to go to the living room. When Qin Sheng and Qin Ran came to the living room, Qin Chang'an said directly, there's a board meeting in the afternoon. You will accompany me to the company later. Qin Sheng was a little surprised and said, I have to go too. Qin Chang'an stared at Qin Sheng meaningfully and nodded slightly. Yes, you should go too. This sentence was meaningful, but Qin Sheng could not understand it. Qin Sheng felt very annoyed. What on earth had happened? He was really helpless. Not only Qin Sheng and Qin Ran were going to the board meeting in the afternoon, but Zhao Anji and Qin Jing were also going. In fact, only Qin Sheng and Zhao Anji were the main characters today. Qin Ran and Qin Jing really had nothing to do there. Qin Sheng did not expect that the first time he went to the company would be in such a situation. But he had to go there sooner or later, so he did not care about the situation. The headquarters of Chang and Group was located in the Chang and Financial Center on Jianwai Street, which was the core CBD of Beijing. There were many high-rise buildings, all of which are the headquarters of various central and private enterprises. Of course, there were many ministries and commissions. It could be said that every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Any enterprise that could take root here was a national big company. Many people who had been to Beijing and walked on this street would be shocked by these high-rise buildings. Many people even dreamed of owning a building here one day, which was definitely a symbol of wealth and status. But who knew how many years or generations of hard work it would take to achieve it successfully? Qin Chang'an and Zhao Anji were in the car in front, while Qin Sheng, Qin Ran, and Qin Jing were in the car behind. They were in the last car, and Chang Baji was the driver, closely following the two cars in front. Qin Sheng already knew what kind of business empire his father had built. When he found out about it, He did not know whether it was because he was too shocked or the concept was beyond his imagination, but he was very calm. It was not far from the Dengshiku alley, only a 10-minute journey. Sitting in the passenger seat, Qin Sheng did not say a word. He habitually stared at the buildings on both sides of the street, searching for the buildings that belonged to some ministries or enterprises. Finally, he saw the twin buildings of the Chong and Financial Center. The motorcade did not stop at the main entrance, which was the focus of attention. Instead, it drove directly into the underground parking lot, which was the exclusive passage for Qin Chang'an. There was an elevator that led directly to his office on the top floor. At this moment, several people were already standing there, waiting for the arrival of the Qin family. When the motorcade stopped, Qin Sheng saw those well-dressed tycoons with extraordinary temperament walking toward Qin Chang'an's car. Among them, there were a few people he knew, including Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini, whom he had met on the first day of the new year, and Lu Yang, who had picked him up this morning. Qin Chang'an and Zhao Anji were in the middle of the crowd. It was not until then that Qin Sheng noticed how terrifying the old man's aura was. Although he was standing a few meters away, he could still feel the imposing aura that suppressed everyone present, making everyone feel as if they were walking on thin ice. Qin Ran, and Qin Jing had already come down. Qin Ran was familiar with this place, so she did not have as many feelings as Qin Sheng. Lu Yang, who was in the crowd, subconsciously looked at Qin Sheng. The look in his eyes was still so complicated. He knew that from today on, this young man, who had never shown his face in public, would officially face all the pressure from the outside world. He did not know whether he could withstand it or not. Qin Chang'an said seriously, "Have the others arrived?" Hao Mingyi, who was the closest to Qin Chang'an, bowed and nodded. "They are already waiting for you in the meeting room." "Then let's go. I will report to you after the meeting." Qin Chang'an said casually, "Yes." After taking 2 steps, Qin Chang'an realized that Qin Sheng and the others were still behind him. So he stopped and slowly turned around, saying unhappily to Qin Sheng, who was still in a daze not far away, "Qin Sheng, what are you standing there for? Let's go in." Chapter 500. Sure enough, from the front of the stage to the backstage, it seemed to be a small step, but for Qin Sheng at this moment, the significance of this step could be said to be earth-shaking. From the ordinary Qin Sheng to this Qin Sheng, this was a change. From the Qin Sheng behind the scenes to the Qin Sheng in front of the stage, this was another change. Every change meant pressure and responsibility, and this time it was more serious. Since returning to the Qin family, Qin Sheng had been adapting to this new identity. Whether he could adapt or not, the external environment forced him to adapt. No one would give him too much time, and no one waited for him to adapt. Could it be that he could not adapt to this Qin Sheng for the rest of his life? No matter what others said, Qin Chang'an still gave Qin Sheng a few months' time. In these few months, Qin Sheng did not have too much pressure, except that he had to show up in public during the Spring Festival. He just went back to the Qin family and reunited with his family. But now, Qin Chang'an did not have time. He did not know whether Qin Sheng was ready or not, and he had no chance to ask. Now Qin Sheng had to stand in front of the stage. At this moment, Qin Chang'an's words made Qin Sheng the focus of everyone present. Everyone was staring at Qin Sheng. When they heard the name, they knew the identity of this young man in front of them. He was the only son of the big boss who had been spreading like wildfire recently, the future head of the Chong and school. Some people had met him, while others had not. Those who had not met Qin Sheng looked at him with expectation, doubt, and envy, and so on. Most of them were thinking about how to deal with this crown prince in the future. Qin Chang'an did not want Qin Sheng to be directly exposed in front of everyone, so he did not enter the building from the front door, but chose the special passage of the underground parking lot. For the time being, he only wanted to let the directors and executives know Qin Sheng, and let Qin Sheng slowly integrate into the company from top to bottom. After Qin Chang'an told Qin Sheng to come to the company this afternoon, Qin Sheng went back to his room and changed his clothes. From beginning to end, the clothes were chosen by Qin Ran and Qin Jing. Obviously, They wanted Qin Sheng to be the focus of the company. After Qin Chang'an told Qin Sheng to come to the company this afternoon, Qin Sheng went back to his room and changed his clothes. From beginning to end, Qin Sheng was chosen by Qin Ran and Qin Jing. Obviously, they wanted Qin Sheng to be the focus of everyone. Facing everyone's gaze, Qin Sheng took a deep breath and buttoned up his suit. Without any hesitation, he walked over with firm steps. At this moment, Qin Sheng was shining brightly. No matter what kind of challenges and pressures he would face, Qin Sheng would not flinch or hesitate, because he was the son of Qin Chang'an and Zhu Qinghuan. He was the future of the Qin family. He had to conquer everything. Among so many people, only Chang Baji knew that Qin Sheng's momentum had undergone an obvious change. It was as if at this moment, Qin Sheng had put down all his burdens and resolutely resumed his journey. In the elevator, Qin Chang'an said to the members of the Qin family, Ran, take Yi to my office and wait. Your aunt and I will take Qin Sheng to the meeting. When she saw the big scene in the underground garage, Qin Ran realized that something big was going to happen today, but she couldn't figure it out. Now that she thought of the old man's transfer of shares at noon and the old woman's decision to settle in Beijing, Qin Ran seemed to have guessed something. She nodded meaningfully. Did this mean that the direct descendants of the Qin family were going to enter the company and open up the complicated situation of the company? At this moment, in the meeting room of the Chang and Financial Center, these prominent directors were talking and laughing. Many of them were the shareholders of Chang and Group. Looking at the resumes of any one of them was enough to make people stunned, and they were also the focus of gossip in the street. Some directors represented the interests of the shareholders who did not directly participate in the affairs of Chang and Group. They were all old acquaintances. Before Qin Chang'an and the others arrived, they were chatting happily. Some of them even made plans to play golf or drink tea in the afternoon. For them, today's board meeting was just a formality. After all, everything had been decided at the temporary shareholders' meeting at the foot of the Great Wall yesterday. That was the real undercurrent. Today's meeting was just to announce a few things. After that, they would see Qin Chang'an's long-lost son again. Shaoli, have you seen that guy? An old man in his 60s, who had gray hair and a face full of wrinkles, sitting at the front, asked a middle-aged man who was wearing glasses casually. The elegant middle-aged man smiled, shook his head, and said, I haven't met him yet, but I've heard a few things about him. It seems that old Master Song likes him very much and wants to match him with Ruyu. The old man in his 60s stroked the jade ring on his thumb and said disapprovingly, Old Master Song wants to be with the Qin family for 100 years. After all, he is a close friend of old Master Qin. But Ryu may not like this guy. The middle-aged man did not care about these trivial things. He said calmly, Who knows? In the meeting room, there were many people like the old man in his 60s and the middle-aged man. Everyone was talking about the young man whom they had not met yet. He was the benefit that Qin Chang'an had gotten from the tit-for-tat shareholders' meeting. However, they did not know whether it was a blessing or a curse. After all, Chang Group was not an ordinary company. They had been waiting for more than 10 minutes. Although they were all tycoons in high positions, they did not get angry or impatient at all. They continued to chat casually. Except for Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini, who were both directors and executives, the others did not hold specific positions in Chang Group. As for the two independent directors, one of them was a tycoon from Tsinghua University of Economics and Management, and the other was a tycoon from the finance department who used to be in a high position but had retired long ago. At this time, the door of the meeting room was finally pushed open from outside. Qin Chang'an, who was dressed in formal clothes and had a strong aura, walked in slowly with a group of people. However, after seeing everyone present, Qin Chang'an did not look so serious anymore. Instead, he smiled and said, Sorry to keep you waiting. Except for the staff members, everyone knew Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini. Although it was the first time for Zhao Anji to come here, many people were familiar with her. Some of them had known her since childhood. After all, the circle of Siju City was not as complicated as it was now. In that case, the identity of the young man next to Zhao Anji was self-evident. He was the long-rumored son of Qin Chang'an, Qin Sheng. They had finally seen him. Hence, everyone paid more attention to Qin Sheng and looked him up and down at the same time. However, the look in their eyes was different from that of the group of people just now. This was because their positions and the interests they represented were different. These people's eyes were sharp and domineering, as if they could see through Qin Sheng's soul. However, Qin Sheng was not afraid at all. With a smile on his face, he walked to his seat under the guidance of the staff members. It was their first time meeting Qin Sheng, so only they knew what they would think of him. Zhao Anji sat beside the old man and said, "Fourth brother, long time no see. You're still so energetic. Anji, you're finally back. The last time we met was 2 years ago. If you didn't come back, I don't know how long I would have to look at you." The old man held Zhao Anji's hand and said sincerely. Zhao Anji smiled and replied, "Fourth brother, don't say that. I won't leave in the future, but I'll definitely disturb you often. Don't feel annoyed at that time." "Why would I? I can't wait for you to come back," the old man said happily. It was obvious that he treated Zhao Anji well. At this time, Zhao Anji looked at the elegant man and said, "Jingwei, how are you? I was shocked when you went to the United States to see a doctor last time. You're still the same, but you haven't changed at all. You're still so beautiful," the elegant man said with a smile. Zhao Anji sighed and said, "I'm old. We're all old." "Sigh. I haven't even said I'm old. You guys are still young," the old man in his 60s interrupted. The others all laughed at the same time. After greeting the two old acquaintances, Zhao Anji exchanged pleasantries with the other 3 old friends she knew. As for the others she didn't know, she also nodded politely in greeting. What about Qin Sheng? His seat was at the bottom. After he sat down, he subconsciously looked at the others. He had seen many of them on TV or in the news. After what happened during the New Year, he was not surprised to see these people. The only person he knew here was the independent director of Tsinghua University's School of Economics and Management. He called him Mr. Zhou very respectfully. The gray-haired old man just responded with a faint smile. Qin Sheng guessed that he might have known his identity before. Qin Chang'an greeted everyone first. After that, he talked with Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini in a low voice for a while. Then, he nodded to Chang Sini slightly. Chang Sini then stood up quietly and walked to the podium in front of them. Qin Sheng knew that the show had begun. Outside, in Qin Chang'an's office, Lu Yang was chatting with Qin Ran and Qin Jing. It was the first time for Qin Jing to come to her uncle's office. She curiously played with some decorations in the office. Qin Ran stood by the floor-to-ceiling window and thought about something. Standing here, she could clearly see the skyscrapers diagonally across from the International Trade Center, and the China Supreme building under construction was particularly eye-catching. Lu Yang walked over and said directly, Ran, are you wondering why Qin Sheng and Aunt Zhao were invited to attend today's meeting?" Qin Ran stopped looking at him and said playfully, "You already know?" Lu Yang was a little embarrassed by her look. He smiled and said, "I just found out." "What do you know?" Qin Ran asked bluntly. Lu Yang crossed his arms and said slowly, "In fact, today's meeting is just a formality, because all the important things have been decided at yesterday's temporary shareholders meeting." "It seems that you know a lot," Qin Ran said with hidden meanings. Lu Yang knew everything at the shareholders meeting, but she didn't, which was thought-provoking. Lu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're making me nervous. Don't keep me guessing. Tell me what's going on." Qin Ran didn't care about Lu Yang's pretense and snorted. Lu Yang smiled awkwardly. "In fact, the most important thing is to announce an appointment." "What appointment?" Qin Ran asked eagerly. Lu Yang said slowly, "Ms. Zhao Anji will be elected as the executive director of the group, and Mr. Qin will be elected as the non-executive director of the group." Chapter 501. Qin Ran realized that something big must have happened when the old man suddenly asked Qin Sheng to come back from Xin, because the old man was definitely not the kind of person who didn't know how to repay kindness. Qin Sheng had been raised by the Lin family for more than 20 years. Now he finally had the ability to repay the kindness of the Lin family. Nothing could be more important than this in a short time. Under normal circumstances, the old man would definitely arrange for Qin Sheng's future after he dealt with everything in Xin. However, the old man suddenly asked Qin Sheng to come back. First, he transferred most of the shares to Qin Sheng, and then he joined the group as a non-executive director. It was definitely not just a family reunion. Moreover, the old man suddenly asked Qin Sheng to come back and settle down in Beijing. Then he joined the group and became an executive director. What did this mean? Many people outside the group didn't understand the power division inside the Chong and group. The reason why the Chong and group could develop so fast was that the internal shareholders of the Chong and group were powerful. These shareholders represented different interest groups, and they would never allow any party to dominate, including Qin Chang'an. The Qin family suddenly elected 2 directors, which meant that the balance had been broken. If the old man wanted to maintain the balance, he had to pay an unknown price. Otherwise, how could those shareholders agree? As for what price, Qin Ren definitely couldn't guess. She could only guess that the temporary shareholders' meeting yesterday was definitely full of gunpowder. Qin Ren suddenly felt a little nervous and worried. She was worried about the old man's situation and more worried about whether Qin Sheng could bear such pressure. The old man already had an attitude towards Qin Sheng, because Qin Ren knew that the old man's previous arrangement for Qin Sheng was to gradually take over from the bottom level, but now he made such a decision. Thinking of the recent crisis of the group, Qin Ren began to ponder whether things were far more serious than she thought. Was there a lot of things that she didn't know? Was the old man really planning a backup plan? After coming to herself, Qin Ren's face was very pale. She asked coldly, "Are you sure about this?" Liu Yang was startled by Qin Ren's expression. He said in surprise, Ran, why are you so surprised? Tell me first, is it really like what you said?" Qin Ren stared at Liu Yang and said. Liu Yang laughed and said, "Why would I lie to you? You'll know the result later." After getting a definite answer, Qin Ren suddenly stood up and left the office in a hurry. Qin Jing asked her what she was going to do, but Qin Ren didn't explain and just left. Qin Jing was about to follow them out, but Liu Yang stopped her and asked her to calm down. Liu Yang sat on the sofa, stroking the armrest of the sofa with a playful look in his eyes. He was not as simple as he looked, especially the Chong in school. Only the authorities knew what kind of situation it was. The 1.5-hour meeting was finally over. When Qin Sheng walked out of the meeting room, he was still in a daze. He could not remember most of the things that had happened at the board meeting. The only thing he could remember was that Chong Sini had announced that he was appointed as the non-executive director of the group. As for the applause, discussions, and congratulations, Qin Sheng could not remember them at all. He finally knew why he was asked to attend the board meeting. So that was why. So the transfer of shares was just the beginning. Qin Sheng had thought that the old man was only doing this to help him gradually integrate into the company and participate in the company's affairs. After all, Qin Ren and Qin Jing had already joined the company, so there was no need for him to go through these procedures. However, the result surprised him. Qin Chang'an did not give him a chance to do things step by step. Instead, he directly placed him at the highest level. It was lonely at the top. Qin Sheng suddenly felt a little unconfident. Most of the directors present were over 50 years old. He was the only young man who was not yet 30 years old. Which of the directors had not experienced too many storms and ups and downs before they finally reached their current positions? But what about him? He had not experienced anything, yet he was standing in such a position. How could he not be silent out of fear, as if he was treading on thin ice? It was lonely at the top, and the wind was stronger at the top. A little carelessness would lead to death. Qin Sheng could not understand why Qin Chang'an suddenly did this. However, the result had been determined. Qin Sheng could not back down. He believed that there must be a lot of unknown reasons for the old man to do this. Didn't the old man think about what he could think of? Therefore, no matter whether he faced a bottomless abyss or a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, he had to move forward without any hesitation. From now on, he would not only represent himself, but also Qin Chang'an and the Qin family. The meeting ended. Qin Sheng and the others stood up and left. At this time, there was nothing for them to do. Qin Chang'an, Zhao Anji, the old man, the elegant middle-aged man, and the other directors continued to stay in the meeting room. The two independent directors also stood up and left. When Qin Sheng walked out of the meeting room, the big boss from the School of Economics and Management of Tsinghua University patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, "Little Qin, don't let us down." Qin Sheng was at a loss. When he was about to respond, the big boss and the other directors had walked slowly to the elevator. At this time, Chang Sini walked to Qin Sheng and said with a smile, "Qin Sheng, don't think so much. It's just a title. Nowadays, most of the younger generation at your age have entered the board of directors of enterprises. This is a kind of inheritance, and it can help you learn a lot. But you have to take it slowly." "Thank you, Aunt Chang," Qin Sheng said politely. Chang Sini said casually, "No matter what questions you have, you can find me or call me at any time. I believe that your future will be wonderful." After that, Chang Sini smiled at Qin Sheng. There was expectation, comfort, worry, and heartache in her smile. When Qin Sheng returned to Qin Chang'an's office, Qin Ran had already finished her phone call and was chatting with others on WeChat. Lu Yang saw Qin Sheng first. He walked over happily and said, "Congratulations, Chairman Qin." Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and said, "It seems that Brother Lu already knows." Lu Yang laughed and said, "It's expected. It's just a matter of time." Qin Sheng shook his head and sighed. "I'm not prepared at all." Lu Yang said half-jokingly, "Others can't wait to envy you. Why are you acting like the sky is falling down? Don't be like this." But he guessed that Qin Sheng must have felt something. At this time, Qin Ran came to her senses and walked quickly to Qin Sheng and Lu Yang. Lu Yang was smart enough to leave. Qin Ran walked over and said worriedly, "Do you feel a lot of pressure?" Qin Sheng did not want his sister to worry too much, so he said lightly, "No pressure." "What pressure?" "Sister, you think too much. It's just a director. Don't those second-generation rich people enter the family business early to be directors? In the future, it will be so glorious to go out with the title of director. Others can't wait to envy you. It's the director of a big company." After hearing Qin Sheng's nonsense, Qin Ran felt angry and funny at the same time. She stared at Qin Sheng and said, "It's just a director. Look at how capable you are. Why don't you be the chairman?" "I don't dare to do that." Qin Sheng smiled bitterly. There were some things that Qin Ran could not tell Qin Sheng. After all, she was Qin Chang'an's daughter and Qin Sheng's sister. She had to understand that the old man was worried about Qin Sheng. So she could only find someone else to talk to. So she said, "I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Uncle wants to see you. I'll take you there." "Uncle," Qin Sheng said in shock. His uncle was a busy man. Since the New Year's Eve dinner, Qin Sheng had not seen his uncle again. However, he had seen him on the TV news many times. Why did his uncle suddenly look for him? "Let's go." Qin Ran said to Qin Jing and left Chang and Financial Center with Qin Sheng. In the conference room, after Qin Chang'an, Zhao Anji, and the others stayed, they didn't come out until almost an hour later. No one knew whether they were talking about the old days or discussing something. Qin Chang'an and Zhao Anji personally sent these big shots to the underground parking lot. After seeing them off, they went back to the office. In the elevator, Qin Chang'an and Zhao Anji looked pale. Zhao Anji said guiltily, "Chang'an, the Qin family is sorry. I hope we can get through this." Recently, Qin Chang'an had a lot of white hair on his head. He shook his head and said, "Sister-in-law, you're treating me like an outsider. After all, I'm a member of the Qin family. It's a good thing that I've come this far. I'll do my best for the rest." "Don't worry. I'll do my best. I won't let anything happen to you," Zhao Anji said firmly. Qin Chang'an sighed and said, "Sister-in-law, it's not that time yet. If it really comes to that, you can't do anything about it. Just don't be a moth flying into the fire. The only thing I'm worried about is Qin Ran and Qin Sheng. Qin Ran is fine. After all, she grew up in Beijing. I'm afraid that Qin Sheng will act recklessly. You help me to control him. Otherwise, I can't explain to his mother. Are you really not going to help the Zhu family? You're the son-in-law of the Zhu family." Zhao Anji didn't answer about Qin Ran and Qin Sheng, but asked directly. Qin Chang'an said thoughtfully, Every family has its own difficulties. I've already let the Zhu family down. Even if they want to help, I don't want to set them up. What's more, the Zhu family's current status has determined that they can't help me casually. Otherwise, the backlash will be more serious. I only hope that they can help me take care of Qin Ran and Qin Sheng. Zhao Anji smiled bitterly and said, "You always worry too much. That's why they can't take advantage of you." Qin Chang'an smiled disapprovingly and said, "No matter how good our relationship is, in the face of interests and crises, we're just taking advantage of each other. However, this kind of use is divided into different levels. People are selfish after all, but they always have to make choices." Zhao Anji smiled faintly and said, "Let's not talk about this. Maybe we'll get through this safely." When they returned to the office, they found that only Qin Jing was reading there alone. Zhao Anji frowned and said, "Yeah, where are your sister and brother?" Qin Jing answered honestly, "Sister and brother left first. They asked me to tell uncle that sister's uncle wants to see them." "The Zhu family?" Zhao Anji said subconsciously. Chapter 502. Chapter 503. I interrogated and suddenly see the light Qin Chang'an reckoned that his brother-in-law had already known what had happened today. Actually, this had nothing to do with the Zhu family. Apart from the relationship between the two families and the two children in the past, the two families actually had no contact with each other. It was not until this year's Lunar New Year's Eve that his brother-in-law had taken the initiative to ease the tension between them. Qin Chang'an also knew that his brother-in-law had done so because he wanted to take care of the two children. Qin Chang'an would consider a lot of things. Of course, he would also consider Qin Sheng. So would Zhu Weiguo. However, the two of them had different perspectives. Qin Chang'an might be more concerned about the Qin family, while Zhu Weiguo was more concerned about Qin Sheng himself. Qin Chang'an guessed that it must have been Qin Ran who had told her uncle about these things. He was not angry about this. Anyway, his brother-in-law would know about it sooner or later. It was better for him to know it earlier. In this way, it would save him the trouble of questioning her later. At the same time, Qin Chang'an also wanted to know what Qin Sheng was thinking. Did he have the courage to shoulder this heavy burden? If Qin Sheng was willing to shoulder this heavy burden, Qin Chang'an would be very pleased. This was indeed what a descendant of the Qin family should do. If Qin Sheng was unwilling, Qin Chang'an would understand. After all, Qin Sheng did not grow up in the Qin family. What he had experienced and come into contact with was not enough for him to shoulder such a heavy burden. Why did the Zhu family suddenly look for Qin Ran and Qin Sheng? Zhao Anji was a little confused. She didn't have much interaction with the Zhu family. Moreover, the Zhu family and the Qin family didn't interact much because of what happened in the past. Ran, on the other hand, was very popular there. Now that Qin Sheng was back, he should be treated well. After all, the Zhu family loved Qin Sheng the most. Moreover, the old lady was still alive. Qin Chang'an explained casually, "I guess I haven't seen them for a long time." Qin Chang'an ordered the secretary to make 2 cups of coffee. Zhao Anji sat on the sofa and said thoughtfully, "The two from a Zhu family are now in the limelight of their official careers. I'm afraid that many people are jealous of them. If Qinghuan had not left, with the help of the Zhu family, those people would not have dared to treat you like this." "Alas," Qin Chang'an said disapprovingly, "it's better to rely on yourself than to rely on others. If you rely on others for everything, even if you manage to pass this hurdle, something will happen sooner or later." He had never thought of asking the Zhu family to take action. Moreover, the Zhu family would not take action anyway. Zhao Anji nodded silently and said, "Then I hope it will be sunny after the rain." Chang Baji drove them to a place that belonged to the military in the west of the city. Even the old Beijing people did not know about this kind of place. Zhu Weiguo just told her the rough address and asked her to call him when she arrived there. Zhu Weiguo had purposely pushed aside some matters to make time for the siblings to come over. Originally, there were many leaders around him, but they were all sent away by Zhu Weiguo in the end, leaving only his secretary and guards to follow them from afar. He walked casually on the training ground and occasionally stopped to watch the Special Forces training. Although the leaders had left, their eyes were still on Zhuweigue. They were afraid that something would happen here and make the chief unhappy. If that happened, they would be in trouble. After Qin Ran and Qin Sheng arrived at this place, they were directly taken to the training ground. The guards and the secretary all knew Qin Ran, so they let them pass directly. Zhuweigue was already waving at them from afar. Chang Baji stayed where he was and stood with the guards and the secretary at a distance. After Qin Sheng and Qin Ran walked to the front of Zhuweigue, they greeted him respectfully, "Uncle." It was not easy for this uncle, who had been in the army all his life, to get to where he was now. He almost died when he was at the front line. Later, he was held in some positions for several years. As for the reason, everyone knew it. It was not until the army underwent a drastic reform that they were put in important positions again. Zhuweigue looked Qin Sheng up and down and said with satisfaction, "Not bad. You are much more energetic than when I saw you at the Spring Festival. It seems that you've been in a good state recently. Young people should be like this." Qin Sheng smiled awkwardly and did not know what to say. After all, he had only met this uncle of his, who was in a high position, a few times. Naturally, he could not take it lightly. Qin Ran said softly, "Uncle, you have lost a lot of weight. Take care of your body, or Grandma will feel sorry for you again." Her uncle loved her the most. Naturally, she also felt sorry for him. Zhuweigue laughed and said, "Your grandma has no time to care about me now. She thinks about her grandson every day. Yesterday, she called me and said that she was going to go back to Beijing for a while. I said that it is still a little cold in Beijing and that she would come back after a period of time. But she refused." Qin Ran said casually, "Maybe it is because she has not been back for a long time. How could it be? Your grandma likes to stay in Shanghai. It is more comfortable there than in Beijing. She will not come back for no reason. I know what is going on. It is because Qin Sheng is back in Beijing now. It is more convenient for her to come back to see him." Zhuweigue did not know whether to laugh or cry. But he could feel that since Qin Sheng came back, the old lady was in a much better mood. The doctor said that her physical condition was recovering well. Qin Ran looked at Qin Sheng and covered her mouth with a smile. After talking about these trivial things for a while, Qin Ran knew why she brought Qin Sheng here. It would be better for her uncle to talk to Qin Sheng alone. So she said sensibly, "Uncle, I need to go to the bathroom." Zhuweigue nodded slightly and said, "Let Xiao Lu take you there. It is a big place." After Qin Ran left, Qin Sheng felt very stressed when he was alone with his uncle. Nonsense. Although this was his uncle, he was also a general with a gold star on his shoulder. Moreover, he was a real general with real power. It could be said that he had reached the highest level of a soldier. Zhuweigue looked at Qin Sheng's cautious look and felt very funny. "Qin Sheng, relax. Don't be so nervous. In front of you, I'm just your uncle." Qin Sheng took a few deep breaths to adjust his state. He felt much better than before. "Are you used to staying in Shanghai? Your grandma is really reluctant to let you go. Every time she calls me, she will talk about you and worry about you. Your sister has never been treated like this." Zhuweigue did not go straight to the topic. Instead, he talked about these family affairs casually. Qin Sheng said honestly, "Uncle, I went to university in Shanghai and worked there for half a year. I also have a lot of friends. Shanghai is my second hometown, so I'm used to it." Zhuweigue laughed at himself and said, Oh, you said it. I have forgotten. I'm not a qualified uncle." Qin Sheng continued, "When I am done with my work, I will go back to Shanghai to accompany my grandma." The old lady missed Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng also missed his grandma. The old lady's love for her grandson made Qin Sheng feel very warm. This was what he lacked most since he was a child. "It has been a few months since you came back. Have you adapted to the new environment?" Zhuweigue asked with concern. He knew that this change was very big, so he was very worried about Qin Sheng's inner world. Qin Sheng said with emotion, "At first, I was not used to it. I thought it was too incredible, but I have gradually adapted to it. I heard from your sister that Qin Chang'an has started to ask you to enter the company. Zhu Weiguo said slowly, which could be considered as starting a new topic. Qin Chang'an suddenly made such a decision when Qin Sheng had just adapted to the new identity and environment. It was like forcing a duck onto a perch. Zhu Weiguo was very unhappy, but he had to figure out what Qin Sheng thought first. If Qin Sheng was not willing, Zhu Weiguo would show up as his uncle and wrestle with Qin Chang'an. He was afraid that Qin Chang'an would take back his decision. When his sister said that his uncle wanted to see him, Qin Sheng already knew what was going on. It must be his sister who called his uncle and told him what had happened today. Then his uncle asked him to come over. Well, the board of directors held a meeting today. I was elected as a non-executive director of the board of directors of the group. But I don't have a specific position yet, Qin Sheng said honestly and did not dare to hide anything. Zhu Weiguo signaled Qin Sheng to continue walking with him. After that, he said, "Tell me, what do you think? If you don't want to, I can tell Qin Chang'an. You are Qin Chang'an's son and also my nephew. Moreover, your grandmother is behind you. I don't dare to let your grandmother know about this. If she knows, I'm afraid she will make a scene." Qin Sheng did not expect that such a thing would cause such a big reaction from his uncle. Moreover, he did not dare to let his grandmother know. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Uncle, it's just a director title." Zhu Weiguo stopped and squinted at Qin Sheng. He said in a low voice, "Qin Sheng, do you know about the business empire your father created?" Qin Sheng did not hide anything. "I know something, but I don't know clearly. In recent years, Qin Chang'an's business empire has been growing wildly like a dark horse. There are all kinds of rumors on the internet. You should have met those shareholders and recognized some of them. I'm afraid ordinary people can't imagine what kind of identity and background they have. But this is just what they say on the surface. There are some inside stories that Qin Chang'an will not tell you. If you join the board of directors, you will be on the same boat. Moreover, you are Qin Chang'an's son. No matter what happens to Qin Chang'an or the business empire, you have to take responsibility. From then on, your life will not be decided by you. What kind of pressure and responsibility you will bear, are you sure you understand?" Zhu Weiguo said meaningfully. He still did not dare to say these words too directly. He thought that Qin Sheng could understand what he meant. His uncle's expression was very serious. Qin Sheng felt that there was a kind of pressure that made him breathless. He said slowly, "Uncle, do I have a choice?" Zhu Weiguo snorted and said, "Qin Chang'an does not have the final say in your affairs. You should know that you're not only a member of the Qin family, but also a member of the Zhu family. At that time, your mother's accidental death and your disappearance made the Zhu family hate the Qin family to the core. If you did not come back today, this contradiction would never be solved. You've suffered for so many years, and we haven't compensated you properly. How can we let you suddenly bear such great pressure? Do you know what you're going to face next? This pressure will crush you. If something happens to you, won't it cost your grandmother's life?" It was not until then that Qin Sheng realized that since he came back, he had always felt that he had returned to the Qin family and was a descendant of the Qin family. He had never thought that he was a descendant of the Zhu family. These relatives were just relatives. After hearing what his uncle said, Qin Sheng suddenly understood. Chapter 503. I want to have a try. Qin Sheng might not even know how great the pressure was, let alone how much he could withstand it. All he could do seemed to be to move forward with an indomitable will, regardless of the difficulties and obstacles. He was not afraid, even if his body was smashed to pieces. He was not afraid, but someone was. As Zhu Weiguo said, it was not easy for Qin Sheng to come back. If something happened to him, not only the Qin family, but also the Zhu family would not be able to bear such a blow, especially the old lady, who was in an unstable condition. The Zhu family would not let Qin Sheng take this risk. Qin Sheng reflected more or less. He reflected that he had not considered the feelings of the Zhu family on this matter. Fortunately, the matter had just come out. If what his uncle had said was true, if his grandmother had known about it, she would probably have a fight with Qin Chang'an. Looking at Qin Sheng's complicated expression, Zhu Weiguo felt sorry for him. It was really difficult to weigh the pros and cons. What a young man under 30 years old might have to face was something he could not imagine at all. Qin Sheng, tell me, what do you think? Zhu Weiguo did not want to continue to pressure Qin Sheng, which would make Qin Sheng feel very embarrassed. Qin Sheng gritted his teeth and said, "Uncle, does he have a choice?" Qin Sheng was not only asking Qin Chang'an if he had a better choice. In fact, he was also asking Qin Chang'an and the Chang and system how big the trouble they were in and whether they could get through it or not. Zhu Weiguo thought for a while and said, "If the situation really deteriorates to the extent I think, this may be his best choice. Maybe I am too pessimistic and it will be a false alarm. You will enter the Chang and system sooner or later. After all, it is the Qin family's property and everyone will be happy." After hearing this, Qin Sheng said firmly, "Uncle, I want to have a try." Hearing Qin Sheng's words, Zhu Weiguo was silent, with admiration, relief, worry, and relief. It seemed that all the people in the Qin family were like this. They were never afraid of anything and were willing to challenge all kinds of unknowns. Qin Sheng was afraid that his uncle would be angry, so he explained in a hurry, "Uncle, it's not that I don't know what's good for me, nor do I not know what I'm going to face. But you said that if things really come to that point, this is his best choice. Anyway, I am his son. If I flinch, not only will he be disappointed, I am afraid that I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. If there is really nothing, it will be the best. If there is really something, I still want to have a try. If I really can't stand the pressure, I will not take the risk. Uncle, I know that whether it's my sister, you, or my grandmother, they're all doing this for my own good. They hope that I can live a peaceful life after I come back, but some things can't be avoided. I can regret, but I don't regret." These were Qin Sheng's true thoughts. At this moment, he only regarded this general, who had been in a high position all his life, as his uncle. He had no other identity. That was why he could say these words so calmly. In the storm 20 years ago, Qin Sheng did not know how many people had flinched at that time, but he was sure that no matter his grandfather, the old man, or his uncle, none of them had flinched. Instead, they had faced the difficulties head-on. Today, 20 years later, the Qin family was shaken again. This time, it was his turn. He could not flinch, but stood up without hesitation. Zhu Weiguo let out a long sigh, patted Qin Sheng's shoulder, and smiled bitterly. "I see. Since you think so, I can't say anything more. If you want to have a try, then have a try. The result is not important. As for you and your grandmother, I will keep it a secret for the time being." Zhu Weiguo understood Qin Sheng and did not want to control his life. As some people said, maybe this was what he had to go through. If he could pass this, then maybe he would really grow up and be able to carry the banner of the Qin family in the future. If Zhu Weiguo had stubbornly stopped them and arranged a fixed life path for Qin Sheng might have lived a peaceful life as they had thought. However, this was not the life he wanted, but the life they wanted. "Uncle." Qin Sheng did not expect that his uncle would agree so easily. He thought that his uncle would stop him or persuade him to give up, so he looked at his uncle in surprise. Zhu Weiguo laughed and said, "Why? Are you surprised?" Qin Sheng did not say anything. Was he not surprised? Zhu Weiguo said calmly, "There are many things that you will know only after you have experienced them. Whatever I say now is useless. I don't want to interfere with your life. You should try not to have regrets in your life." Who did not have regrets? Too many regrets would eventually become too many knots in one's heart that could never be untied. Zhu Weiguo also had many regrets. When he was young, he did not understand many things. He thought that he still had a long time. When he understood, it was already too late, and he might not have a chance anymore. So he had regrets for the rest of his life. As for this matter, Zhu Weiguo did not tell Qin Sheng, because it would not work if he said it. That was, the Zhu family could ignore Qin Chang'an, but it was impossible for them to ignore Qin Sheng. When Qin Ran came back from the bathroom, Zhu Weiguo had already left the training ground. His daily schedule was very full. If it was not such a big thing, he would not have delayed things and waited for Qin Sheng. After Qin Ran came back, she was confused and asked, "Hey, where is Uncle?" Qin Sheng said casually, "Uncle has something to do," and left. "He asked us to go to his house for dinner this weekend." "Oh, Qin Ran was a little disappointed. She did not know how the conversation between Uncle and Qin Sheng was going. This was the most important thing today. Just now, when the old man called her, she did not dare to answer it. She was also very conflicted at this moment. It seemed that whatever she did was wrong. Suddenly, Qin Sheng looked at Qin Ran with deep affection. Then he stretched out his arms and hugged his sister. He was really flattered to have such a sister who cared about him and cared about him. He felt that the bitterness and tiredness of the first half of his life were nothing. Only by supporting the Qin family could he protect his sister in the future. Therefore, Qin Sheng said firmly, "Sister, believe me." When Qin Ran heard this, she already knew the answer. The weight of this sentence was so heavy that she felt a little breathless. However, she felt sorry for Qin Sheng, for this silly brother of hers, so her eyes reddened uncontrollably again. "Sister, why do you like to cry so much?" Qin Sheng let go of his sister and deliberately teased her. Qin Ran replied angrily, "Isn't it because of you? Then I'll accompany you for a walk." Qin Sheng smiled and said. Neither of them was in a hurry to go back. It was already afternoon, so they took a half-day of leisure. They walked aimlessly on the training ground, and no one would disturb them. Chang Baji followed closely behind them. Seeing those special forces who were fighting on the training ground, Qin Sheng suddenly said casually, "Sister, are they very powerful?" Qin Ran did not know what Qin Sheng was thinking about, but when she came in, she already knew where this place was. Therefore, she replied, "Of course they are powerful. They're all special forces." Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, "They're definitely not as powerful as me." Qin Ran burst out laughing and said, "You're bragging. I don't believe it. Even 10 of you can't beat any one of them." There were some things that Qin Chang'an knew, but Qin Ran definitely did not. Therefore, she did not know that Qin Sheng was very powerful. This was also the reason why he had survived many dangerous situations. Therefore, Qin Sheng said, "Sister, I never brag. Since you don't believe me, then I'll show you how powerful your brother is. Anyway, I haven't practiced for a long time, so I'm a little rusty." After that, Qin Sheng walked to several soldiers not far away. Judging from the epaulets, their ranks were not low. They should be instructors or leaders in charge of the training ground. Qin Ran hurriedly shouted, "Qin Sheng, don't mess around." The person in charge of the training ground was a lieutenant colonel with 2 bars and 2 stars. He had long noticed Qin Sheng. After all, Qin Sheng was with the big leader who came to inspect today, which made him feel like he was walking on thin ice. Therefore, when Qin Sheng walked over, the lieutenant colonel asked politely, "Hello, what can I do for you?" Qin Sheng did not exchange pleasantries. He said bluntly, "Is this your strength? It's a little fancy, but not practical." Qin Sheng's sudden words stunned the lieutenant colonel for a while. He did not know what Qin Sheng meant. Could it be that the big leader thought that there was something wrong with their training? The lieutenant colonel replied somewhat awkwardly, "This is just our daily training subject." Qin Sheng said bluntly, "Then find the best fighter here. I'll fight with him." Although the lieutenant colonel had not figured out what was going on, he was somewhat unhappy about Qin Sheng's provocation. However, since this man dared to say so, it meant that he was definitely not bad at martial arts. Therefore, he readily agreed, wanting to see how powerful this man was. The lieutenant colonel shouted sternly, "Zhou Jianbin." A man who was training stepped out of the line and shouted, "Here." Qin Ran already knew what Qin Sheng wanted to do. She hurriedly stopped him and said, "Qin Sheng, are you crazy?" Chapter 504. I'm attending the First China Online Literature Week in Hangzhou these 2 days. I'm learning. Updates may be unstable. There were no ifs in life, so try not to have any regrets. There were no illusions in life. You could only know right or wrong and the result after experiencing it. Therefore, Qin Sheng didn't choose to escape. He might have a stable life if he escaped, but he would regret and feel guilty after all, which was not Qin Sheng's style. However, when faced with danger and challenges calmly, no matter what the outcome was, perhaps one's bones would be crushed, or perhaps the sky would be clear after the rain, but one's heart would definitely be at ease. Although it was a lifetime, after all, a lifetime only lasted for a few decades. Some people spent their entire lives in mediocrity, some selflessly contributed their entire lives, some dragged out an ignoble existence their entire lives, and some blossomed their entire lives in incomparable brilliance. Living a more meaningful life in their limited lives was a true lifetime. Therefore, Qin Sheng chose to face it. Therefore, Zhu Weiguo also chose to support him. However, Qin Ren wouldn't think so much. Not everyone could remain rational in this kind of thing, not to mention that this person was her closest relative. Qin Ren only thought about how to protect Qin Sheng. Qin Ren would only feel distressed and worried about Qin Sheng. Therefore, she was afraid of the worst result, so she didn't let Qin Sheng take risks. Qin Sheng said he wanted to have a try, but his sister didn't believe his ability. Qin Sheng said he wanted to compare notes with the special forces. Qin Ran said he was crazy, but she still didn't believe it. Qin Sheng knew that his sister still didn't understand him, so he wanted to let his sister really start to understand him from this small matter. Secondly, Qin Sheng hadn't fought for a long time. He found that his recent life was always full of depression, which shouldn't be. Therefore, Qin Sheng wanted to vent. Qin Sheng didn't mean to provoke or humiliate these special forces. They were the backbone of the country, and Qin Sheng admired these soldiers from the bottom of his heart. However, their routines were indeed full of loopholes, which might cause hidden dangers when it came to killing the enemy. Because of this, Qin Sheng planned to compare notes with them. The Special Forces soldier named Zhou Jianbin had already stood up and walked straight to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng signaled his sister to step back. Qin Ran knew that she couldn't stop Qin Sheng, so she was completely relieved. Maybe he was too depressed. However, she absolutely didn't believe that Qin Sheng could win. These special forces were the elites from various battlefields who came to participate in the military competition. No matter how good Qin Sheng was at fighting, he would definitely lose if he met these people. Zhou Jianbin, spar with him, said the lieutenant colonel with a chiseled face and a determined gaze. This special forces soldier named Zhou Jianbin was more or less unwilling. He had a crew cut and a scar on his forehead. His expression was murderous and his body was full of wildness. Sir, although Zhou Jianbin wanted to refuse, this was an order, and he couldn't refuse. However, he had to know what the bottom line was. The lieutenant colonel snapped, "Speak. If there are any accidents, I won't take responsibility," Zhou Jianbin said honestly. Regardless of whether it was actual combat or training, Zhou Jianbin always strived to end the battle in the shortest amount of time possible. That was why his attacks had always been fierce. The lieutenant colonel did not say anything, but Qin Sheng took the initiative to say, "Just come at me. It has nothing to do with you whether I break an arm or a leg." The lieutenant colonel nodded. In any case, this man had already said so. Even if something were to happen, he was not afraid of taking responsibility. Qin Sheng and Zhou Jianbin took a few steps toward the empty space in the middle of the training ground at the same time, keeping a sufficient distance from the others. In this way, they would not hurt others or affect their performance. Qin Sheng took a few steps back and stretched out his hand politely. "Don't hide your strength, and don't be afraid of anything. Show your real strength, and don't embarrass the special forces." "Don't worry, you won't be disappointed," Zhou Jianbin sneered. Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, "Let's do it." Zhou Jianbin was a real troublemaker. In his eyes, only the weak were prey to the strong. He would only respect you if you beat me. Anything else was nonsense. Therefore, after Qin Sheng finished speaking, Zhou Jianbin did not hold back at all. Without waiting for Qin Sheng to make a move, he took the lead and rushed toward Qin Sheng. Like a fierce tiger coming down from the mountain, he punched Qin Sheng's neck. It could be seen that this was a killing move. Qin Ran was really worried about Qin Sheng. She did not know why Qin Sheng wanted to challenge the special forces here. Did he really want to die? What if he got hurt? Therefore, she was a little unhappy. But no matter how unhappy she was also worried about Qin Sheng. After all, she was his sister. Chang Baji stood beside Qin Ran and said calmly, "Don't worry about Qin Sheng. Even if he can't beat you, he definitely has the ability to protect himself. Don't worry. Qin Ran tilted her head and looked at Changbaji. She knew that this man must be very powerful. Otherwise, Qin Sheng would bring him everywhere. Since he had said so, Qin Ran was more or less confident. The lieutenant colonel had already noticed Changbaji. As a seasoned veteran, he instantly sensed the threat Changbaji posed. This was a true battle between experts. The two of them inadvertently exchanged glances, and they both nodded slightly in greeting. On the training ground, although Qin Sheng's words were a little disdainful, the chairman had said that strategically, the enemy should be looked down on, and tactically, the enemy should be taken seriously. Therefore, after the real fight, Qin Sheng did not dare to look down on, and he was very careful. After all, he did not know Zhou Jianbin's strength at all. Zhou Jianbin did not want to test Qin Sheng at all. He felt that it was a waste of time. He only wanted to show his real strength and try to defeat Qin Sheng in the shortest time. If his skills were not as good as Qin Sheng's, he would lose sooner or later. If his strength was far greater than Qin Sheng's, he would win faster. Zhou Jianbin's fist approached, and Qin Sheng dodged it sideways. The wind of Zhou Jianbin's fist brushed past his chin. Qin Sheng could feel that Zhou Jianbin could not be underestimated. He wanted to vent his anger, so he did not intend to just defend. Instead, he wanted to have a big fight with Zhou Jianbin. Therefore, Qin Sheng attacked without hesitation. He also gave a punch, but his target was Zhou Jianbin's lower ribs. Since Zhou Jianbin was chosen by the lieutenant colonel to fight against Qin Sheng, he must be outstanding. Therefore, Qin Sheng's move was not a threat to him. He directly grabbed Qin Sheng's arm and forcibly stopped Qin Sheng's attack. Following that, he lifted his knee and hit Qin Sheng's abdomen. Qin Sheng was not in a hurry. He took the opportunity to pull Zhou Jianbin's arm and put on his knee, suppressing Zhou Jianbin's attack. At the same time, he took the opportunity to turn and kick Zhou Jianbin's back. Zhou Jianbin knew what Qin Sheng wanted to do, but he did not move at all. He directly took Qin Sheng's kick. However, the price Qin Sheng paid was that he was thrown out by Zhou Jianbin. However, Qin Sheng landed safely and was not injured. Not bad. You are more powerful than I thought, Qin Sheng said bluntly. He deserved to be a special force soldier. Although it was just a short fight, there were so many dangers hidden in it. It was not as simple as it seemed. Zhou Jianbin snorted. Is this all you can do? Qin Sheng said, half-jokingly, then I admit defeat. Can I stop fighting? Zhou Jianbin was very annoyed. What do you think this place is? After that, he did not care whether Qin Sheng really did not want to fight or pretended to admit defeat. He rushed toward Qin Sheng again. Qin Sheng did not escape. Instead, he rushed toward him. When the two of them fought, Zhou Jianbin went straight to Qin Sheng's ribs. Qin Sheng blocked it with his arm and lifted his knee to hit Zhou Jianbin's waist at the same time. Zhou Jianbin also lifted his knee to block Qin Sheng's knee. The two of them fought in a big way. Zhou Jianbin made several moves in a row on the top. Qin Sheng countered each of his moves and made trouble for Zhou Jianbin on the bottom. The two of them were completely entangled with each other. It was very lively. Nobody knew when the two of them could not care about anything anymore. Qin Sheng took a few punches from Zhou Jianbin in a row. Zhou Jianbin was also injured in many places. However, there was still no winner, which made the onlookers very nervous. Qin Sheng shouted, "Come again. Is this all you can do?" Zhou Jianbin was completely irritated. He exerted his strength again and used a series of fighting moves on Qin Sheng. However, Qin Sheng was not a vegetarian. He did not defend at all. Even if he took a few more punches, it did not matter. Today, he must fight to his heart's content. It would be best if he could make Zhou Jianbin completely exhausted. At this time, it was already evening. They had fought for a full 20 minutes, but there was still no winner. The others felt that the situation might be more anxious. However, the lieutenant colonel, who was not far away, was somewhat worried. He did not expect this strange man to be so powerful. It should be known that Zhou Jianbin was an elite who participated in the competition. He could be considered to be one of the top 3 in the whole team. Unexpectedly, After such a long time, Zhou Jianbin still could not defeat this man. At first, Qin Ran was very worried. However, she gradually felt relieved. The strength that Qin Sheng had shown had already made her dumbfounded. This was completely beyond her imagination. She did not expect that her brother would be so powerful that even the elites of the special forces were no match for him. As for this kind of fighting scene, Qin Ran was no stranger. After all, there were many powerful people in the Qin family. She had seen them in the military compound when she was a child. Chang Baji, who was next to Qin Ran, kept squinting and staring at Qin Sheng. Sometimes, he would even nod his head in appreciation. That was because he could feel that Qin Sheng's strength had improved a lot. He was 2 levels higher than at the beginning. It seemed that Qin Sheng had learned a lot in these few times of life and death training. On the field, Qin Sheng and Zhou Jianbin were somewhat embarrassed. It could be said that they were covered in dirt. Qin Sheng was pushed backward by Zhou Jianbin again. Zhou Jianbin was also kicked away by Qin Sheng. After Qin Sheng steadied himself, he shouted, "Cool, cool." Zhou Jianbin spat out the extravasated blood in his mouth fiercely. He gritted his teeth and stood up. He stared at Qin Sheng. His physical strength had declined very obviously. However, this man seemed to be more and more courageous as the fight went on. Zhou Jianbin began to feel a little guilty. If he still could not defeat this man, he was afraid that he would lose. However, Qin Sheng was not going to give him another chance. At this time, he was already dripping with sweat and had almost vented his anger. Moreover, Zhou Jianbin did not have much strength left. As a result, Qin Sheng playfully said to Zhou Jianbin, who was not far away, "It's time to end it." Chapter 505. In a battle between 2 armies, the most important thing was to build up their morale in one go, then weaken it in the second, and exhaust it in the third. Zhou Jianbin was definitely such a character. He had no intention of hiding his strength from the start. He wanted to directly take down the man in front of him who dared to provoke them. But the result was shocking. Not only did he not defeat Qin Sheng in a short time, but he was also led by the nose by Qin Sheng and gradually consumed his physical strength and endurance. Zhou Jianbin was already tired of dealing with him. As for Qin Sheng, he did not know Zhou Jianbin's strength at the beginning. He was more or less hiding his strength. Moreover, Zhou Jianbin was not an enemy. He just regarded Zhou Jianbin as an opponent to learn from. His main purpose today was to have an unscrupulous fight to vent his dissatisfaction these days. After a few rounds of fighting, Qin Sheng's heart was already calm. Zhou Jianbin's strength was not weak. He had caused him a lot of trouble, but he was not his opponent. Therefore, Qin Sheng could attack Zhou Jianbin without holding back and let Zhou Jianbin feed him moves to his heart's content. After half an hour of fighting, the onlookers were very satisfied. Of course, there were also people like Qin Ran who were more worried. Qin Sheng was also fighting to his heart's content and was already sweating all over. It was getting late, and Qin Sheng had vented enough. He was really satisfied today. Seeing that Zhou Jianbin's physical strength could not hold on anymore, Qin Sheng also felt that it was meaningless to continue, so he chose to end the fight. Qin Sheng had absolute respect for Zhou Jianbin. They were the backbone of the Republic, the heroes in times of crisis, and the warriors who went against the current. Therefore, he showed his true strength to Zhou Jianbin. When Qin Sheng came over, even though he was physically weak, Zhou Jianbin still faced him without hesitation. He was not tired of dealing with it, but he would choose to do so at any time. He would never retreat until he died in battle. When the two of them fought again, this time, Qin Sheng took the initiative to attack. He threw a few punches straight at Zhou Jianbin's vital points. Zhou Jianbin felt that he was no longer Qin Sheng's opponent, so he gave up on defense and chose to use the strategy of hurting himself and Qin Sheng. However, his physical strength had declined too much, and he was far from being like Qin Sheng, who had walked on Zhongnan Mountains every day as if it were flat ground when he was young. In the end, not only did Zhou Jianbin not cause any damage to Qin Sheng, but he was also punched in the shoulder and took 2 steps back. Again, Zhou Jianbin did not admit defeat and shouted angrily. The lieutenant colonel didn't stop Zhou Jianbin. He knew what kind of temper Zhou Jianbin had, so he let him do as he pleased. However, if Zhou Jianbin was truly in danger, the lieutenant colonel would definitely stop him. He wouldn't allow Zhou Jianbin's sparring session to affect the upcoming military tournament. When Zhou Jianbin rushed over, Qin Sheng was still the same as before, attacking without holding anything back. Every move was aimed at Zhou Jianbin's vital parts. Zhou Jianbin managed to dodge Qin Sheng's foot that fell from the sky with great difficulty. After this foot landed on the ground, it stirred up a lot of dust. Everyone could see Qin Sheng's strength. Following that, Zhou Jianbin was hit by Qin Sheng's knee, which hit his back. Zhou Jianbin staggered a few steps forward and almost fell to the ground. Zhou Jianbin felt some pain in his back, but he clenched his teeth and did not give up. To him, this was not only a spar, but also a rare learning experience. How could he miss it? Come on, Zhou Jianbin shouted as he straightened his back and rushed toward Qin Sheng again. The lieutenant colonel still didn't stop him. Zhou Jianbin planned to fight to the death. Not only did his momentum not weaken, it was even stronger than before. After rushing toward Qin Sheng and fighting, he first pretended to be weak and took a few punches from Qin Sheng. However, all of a sudden, he made a tricky hook which hit Qin Sheng's abdomen directly, causing Qin Sheng to groan. He didn't give Qin Sheng a chance to breathe, because this was also his last chance. Therefore, when Qin Sheng bent down subconsciously, Zhou Jianbin suddenly exerted force on one leg and prepared to jump high, then hit Qin Sheng directly on the ground with his knee. However, Qin Sheng was not someone to be trifled with. When Zhou Jianbin leaped up, Qin Sheng already knew what he wanted to do. Qin Sheng stomped on the ground fiercely with both of his feet and slammed into Zhou Jianbin with the force of 1,000 caddies with his shoulders. Bang! This time, it was like Mars hitting Earth. Zhou Jianbin flew out like a kite with a broken string. After falling heavily on the ground, he didn't have the strength to get up anymore, completely losing his combat power. He collapsed on the ground and laughed out loud. He didn't feel upset about losing at all. Instead, he felt quite refreshed. Qin Sheng was also panting heavily. He felt a piercing pain in his back. After all, Zhou Jianbin's knee had hit his back. If it weren't for protecting Zhou Jianbin, of course, Qin Sheng wouldn't have been injured. However, if Qin Sheng had chosen to protect himself, Zhou Jianbin's leg would have been broken. This was originally a fight to learn from each other, so Qin Sheng had a bottom line. The lieutenant colonel just watched from the beginning to the end and didn't stop Zhou Jianbin at all. He hadn't seen such a powerful fight for a long time. This man really made him look at him in a new light. Zhou Jianbin didn't let him down. The lieutenant colonel immediately arranged for 2 special forces soldiers to help Zhou Jianbin up. At the same time, he walked toward Qin Sheng and said, "Awesome, you're really awesome. Young man, are you also a retired soldier?" Qin Sheng shook his head and replied politely, "I'm just showing off in front of an expert. A real expert is much more powerful than me. I might have been a little presumptuous today. I hope you can forgive me." The lieutenant colonel laughed and said, "It's just a small thing. You've taught them a lesson. I think they've learned a lot today. I should thank you." Qin Sheng said calmly, "You're too polite. I'm the one who interrupted your training." At this time, Zhou Jianbin had been helped over. He didn't want to lose face. He lowered his head and said sincerely, "My skills are not as good as others. I lost." Qin Sheng patted Zhou Jianbin's shoulder and said affirmatively, "You're also very powerful. If it were me a year ago, I wouldn't be your match at all." After several life-and-death battles, Qin Sheng had also made rapid progress. That was why he could defeat Zhou Jianbin today. Zhou Jianbin said thoughtfully, "Can I ask you for advice in the future?" Qin Sheng found it somewhat funny and said, "I won't lead you astray. But if you want to ask for advice, you can ask him. He's much more powerful than me." Qin Sheng pointed at Chang Baji, who was behind him, naturally. Chang Baji looked confused. "Damn it. You got into trouble, and now you want me to take the blame. What the hell is going on?" The lieutenant colonel looked at Chang Baji again and nodded silently. As expected, the real expert was this middle-aged man. Seeing that it was getting dark, the Sahiwan called them several times, asking them to go back for dinner. Consequently, Qin ran over in a hurry. She patted the dust on Qin Sheng's clothes and complained, "Don't be so impulsive next time." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Sister, trust me. Your brother is not a good-for-nothing." Qin Ran was somewhat speechless as she said, "Yes, I believe you. I'll believe whatever you say in the future." After exchanging contact information with the lieutenant colonel and Zhou Jianbin, Qin Sheng, his sister, and Lao Chong left this important military place. After a fierce battle, Qin Sheng felt really refreshed. The air quality in Sijio City was getting better and better. This spring, there were no more sandstorms that often raged in the past. The sun had just set, and the sky was already dark. Only a little bit of burning clouds remained in the sky. At the beginning of the evening, when the lights were on, the car windows were open. Looking at the bright lights and the comfortable evening breeze, one would feel really relaxed and comfortable. If there were no challenges in life, no matter whether one lived in a rich family or an ordinary family, a plain life would eventually lose a lot of fun, just like a dish without salt. Qin Sheng seemed to understand why he often felt helpless after he came back. That was because in the past, Qin Sheng had dreams and goals. Consequently, no matter how hard and tired he was, he would live happily because he knew that he was working hard toward that goal. As long as he made a little progress every day, he would be satisfied and satisfied. Then, the sudden change completely messed up his life. His dreams and goals were all meaningless in an instant. Qin Sheng started to feel a little confused. For anyone, if they suddenly lost their life goals and dreams, they would also be at a loss, as if they had lost the bright light in their life. Qin Sheng's heart skipped a beat. After he returned to the Qin family, no matter how powerful his identity and background were, how superior his material life was, and how high his social status was, they had nothing to do with dreams and dreams at all. Consequently, Qin Sheng had been unable to adapt to it. It was not because he needed to settle down as he had thought before. Now, Qin Sheng finally found a new life goal. His heart finally calmed down gradually. A new life had just begun. In the Sahiwan of the Qin family, the elders were chatting in the living room. In addition to Qin Chang'an and Zhao Anji, Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini, the two tycoons of the group were also here. Lu Yang was also there. Qin Jing felt bored, so she came out. Lu Yang knew that she was Zhao Anji's daughter. Now that Zhao Anji had become the executive director of the group, he heard that this rich lady also held shares in the group. Of course, Lu Yang wanted to curry favor with her. Therefore, he took the initiative to talk to her. However, Qin Jing was neither hot nor cold to him. At this time, Qin Jing was thinking about her brother and sister, more or less complaining that they did not take her with them, so she was very unhappy. Lu Yang brought trouble upon himself, so he deserved it. In the end, Lu Yang had no choice but to leave. It was better to serve these tycoons. When she saw her brother and sister coming back, Qin Jing ran over happily and said in a spoiled manner, "Sister, brother, why did you come back so late?" Qin Ran laughed and said, "I didn't pay attention to the time, so I came back late." Qin Jing pouted and said, "Then you can take me with you when you go out in the future. It's too boring to be alone." Although she had started working, Qin Jing was still like a little girl who had not grown up. She was very simple. Qin Ran held Qin Jing's hand and said, Okay. I will take you with me in the future." Before they walked in, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran heard the laughter inside. They frowned slightly. After asking Yaya, they knew what was going on. It turned out that the two tycoons of the group were here, but they did not expect that Lu Yang was also here. Qin Sheng did not understand what was going on. Of course, Qin Ran knew. Maybe Qin Chang'an wanted Lu Yang to be Qin Sheng's trusted general in the future, so that Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini could protect Qin Sheng. But could it all come true? Chapter 506. Every step that Qin Sheng had taken seemed to be his choice, but in fact, it was also the choice of many people. For example, Zhu Weiguo had chosen to support Qin Sheng at the last moment. There was something that he did not tell Qin Sheng. That was the Zhu family could choose not to help Qin Sheng on. But if anyone bullied Qin Sheng, the Zhu family would definitely not sit idly by. The second was Qin Ran. As his elder sister, Qin Ran definitely had to consider a lot of things for Qin Sheng. Now that Qin Sheng had chosen such a path, Qin Ran could not stop him. Moreover, his uncle had already agreed. Naturally, Qin Sheng would be more determined to go on. What she needed to do was to let Qin Sheng walk on this path more smoothly. Qin Sheng didn't know about the internal disputes in the Chang'an group, but Qin Ran, who had worked there for several years, knew it better than anyone else. Although she had never entered the senior management, it was because she didn't want to get involved in those things. Secondly, Qin Chang'an didn't want her to do those things. After all, Qin Chang'an was still alive. Now that Qin Sheng had chosen this path, Qin Ran had to prepare for a rainy day. She couldn't avoid it anymore. She had to take the initiative to attack, in case they would be in a mess when the situation she was most worried about happened. After all, she didn't have many people in the Chang'an group that she could trust. When Qin Sheng and the others walked into the living room, Zhao Anji saw them first. She smiled and said, "Oh, you're finally back. We were waiting for you to have dinner." Qin Ran explained casually, "There was a traffic jam on the road, so we came back late. Uncle Hao and Aunt Chong are also here." Hao Mingyi and Chong Sinny smiled and said hello to Qin Sheng and Qin Ran. They liked Qin Ran very much and were very sure of her ability. They had suggested to Qin Chang'an many times to let Qin Ran join the management team, but Qin Chang'an refused every time with various reasons. Anyway, Qin Sheng could work in the investment company she was in charge of, no matter whether it made money or lost money, as long as she was happy. This time, Qin Chang'an asked Qin Ran to be in charge of the affairs in Shanghai because he didn't trust some people. Otherwise, he would have chosen the senior management in Beijing. Qin Chang'an stood up slowly and said, "Since you're back and everyone is hungry, let's have dinner." In the dining room, the servants had already prepared the family banquet. Gongsun had already formulated a complete set of procedures for the different ranks and treatments. He was very familiar with these matters. The two seniors of the Qin family sat at the main seats, while the juniors sat at the back. Most of the time, they listened to the seniors' conversation. Qin Ran and Lu Yang talked a lot about the company, while Qin Sheng and Qin Jing only cared about eating. Of course, when it was time to propose a toast, they would not fall behind. Zhao Anji said with a smile, "Sheng, from today on, you are officially part of the company. If there is anything you don't understand in the future, you should ask your Uncle Hao and Aunt Chong. They are the founding members of the company, and they're even more loyal to our Qin family." It was more appropriate for her to say these words. Compared with the relationship between Qin Chang'an and Qin Sheng, Qin Sheng would listen to her more. Although they had not known each other for a long time, family affection sometimes had nothing to do with time. Qin Sheng took the initiative to raise his glass and said, "Then I'd like to propose a toast to Uncle Hao and Aunt Chong. Thank you. I hope you can teach me by word and example." Qin Sheng, don't be so polite. If there is anything you don't understand, just come to us. You are the future successor of our group. Of course, we hope you can become more and more outstanding, Chong Sinny said with a warm smile. After Qin Sheng finished his toast, the atmosphere became more and more lively. Qin Chang'an said casually, "In the next few days, let Lu Yang take you to familiarize yourself with the group. You should keep in touch in the future." Lu Yang hurriedly said, "Boss, don't worry. I will definitely complete this task." After dinner, Qin Sheng saw off the guests and was ready to go out. Han Su asked him to talk in detail in a quiet bar in Hohai. The bar was opened by his friend, and the business was not bad. Before Qin Sheng went out, Qin Ran and Qin Jing blocked his way. Qin Jing said discontentedly, "Brother, what are you doing so late? Are you planning to go out secretly?" "I have an appointment with a friend," Qin Sheng said casually. Qin Jing said with a smile, "Can you take me and my sister with you? We are also very bored at home. We still want to have a good chat with you. How can you abandon us like this?" Qin Sheng already knew that his sister would go back to Shanghai tomorrow. After thinking for a while, he felt that it was not a big deal. After all, he had a good relationship with Han Su. Moreover, they did not know his specific identity. It was okay to take his sister and sister with him. Hearing that they were going to the bar street in Hohai, Qin Jing was quite excited. She had heard a lot of friends in China talking about it, but she had never been there. She hurriedly ran back to her room to change clothes. In a bar called Lotus in Hohai, Han Su had been waiting for a long time with two friends. They were his best friends for many years and had helped a lot in this matter. During the time when Qin Sheng was not there, Han Su had been secretly investigating what had happened last time. During the period when Qin Sheng was not around, Han Su had been secretly investigating what had happened last time. He was the kind of person who would definitely seek revenge after suffering a loss. Even if he did not take revenge, he had to know who had tricked him. Anyway, he did not like to be kept in the dark as a fool. Therefore, during this period, Han Su had been secretly looking for the manipulator behind the scenes. He even used a lot of resources from his father's generation. Finally, he figured out what had happened. However, the results surprised him greatly. It turned out that the protagonist that night was not him, but Qin Sheng, who was by his side. Therefore, Han Su had to tell Qin Sheng the truth so that Qin Sheng would pay attention and not suffer losses again. Han Su was not the kind of rich second generation that was commonly seen. On the contrary, he had a lot of gangster temperament. He valued friendship and righteousness, and paid attention to straightforwardness. He did not like those who were full of evil ideas. He would play with those who he could have fun with, and would ignore those who could not. Therefore, in this advanced course, he was close to Qin Sheng and a few others. Even Wei Li regarded him as half a friend because of his relationship with Qin Sheng. When he walked to the door of Lotus Bar, Qin Sheng received a call from Lu Changxi. Therefore, he asked Qin Ran and Qin Jing to go in first, and he would come in after answering the call. Of course, Lu Changxi was talking about what had happened in Xin. He went straight to the point. Qin Sheng, they have started to use their connections. Someone has already found our old master and asked us not to interfere in this matter. Someone also came to me to inquire about the news. It seems that they can't sit still anymore. Then what did you say? Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. Lu Changxi said bluntly. The old master was tactful. He said that he would ask what was going on. After all, he had to show respect to me. I will deal with it later. As for my side, it is simple. I asked my friends not to interfere in this matter, or they will not be friends anymore. Thank you, Uncle Lu and Brother Lu, Qin Sheng said politely. Lu Changxi laughed and said, the thing we talked about last time is already being done. There will be a lot of trouble over there recently. Moreover, they have a lot of things to do. We are just taking advantage of the situation to push it. When they get a definite reply from our Lu family, I am afraid that they will come to you to beg for mercy. After all, they can't bear it anymore. Beg for mercy? If they can solve the problem by begging for mercy, it will be too easy for them. Qin Sheng snorted. The general situation in Xi and had been settled. He only needed to go there to deal with it. Lu Changxi said lightly, that's true. I will stay in Beijing recently, so I have to trouble you to deal with the things in Xin. When you come to Beijing, tell me in advance, and I will thank you properly, Qin Sheng said in a low voice. Qin Sheng, you are too polite, Lu Changxi said with a smile. Then his tone changed, and he asked casually, is the thing in Beijing a little tricky? Qin Sheng did not know what Lu Changxi wanted to know, nor did he want to reveal too much. So he said, it is not as troublesome as people think. That's good. Lu Changxi did not ask too much, for fear that Qin Sheng would think too much. This topic was over. After hanging up the phone, Qin Sheng walked into the bar. When he was about to look for his sister, he found that there were 3 men standing beside them, including Han Su. Qin Sheng did not know what was going on, but he walked over. Could it be that his sister knew Han, Su, and his friends? In fact, it was far from what Qin Sheng thought. The truth was that Han Su and his 2 friends were hitting on Qin Ran and Qin Jing. After Qin Ran and Qin Jing came in, they instantly became the focus of the whole bar. There were beautiful women, but it was rare to see such beautiful women. All the men were tempted, but in the end, Han Su and his friends took the lead. Qin Ran and Qin Jing had long been used to being hit on by strange men when they were out. After all, the Qin family's genes were too good, and the two sisters were both beautiful. But after a long time, they naturally felt disgusted. Qin Sheng was answering the phone outside. They did not know who was Qin Sheng's friend, so they casually found a seat and sat down, waiting for Qin Sheng to come in. Unexpectedly, Qin Sheng was hit on before he came in. "Hi, can I add you on WeChat?" Han Su said shamelessly. He seldom talked to beautiful women. After all, ordinary beautiful women could not enter his eyes. However, the appearance and temperament of these two beautiful women today made him fall for them. So, he directly came over. "What are you talking about?" Han Su asked. Qin Ran refused him bluntly. "I'm sorry, we are already married." Han Su knew that she was declining, so he still did not give up. "Little sister, I don't mean anything else. I just want to make friends. I'm not a bad person, and I will not harass you. Before I get angry, you'd better disappear in front of me. Otherwise, you will bear the consequences," Qin Ran said unhappily. Han Su felt somewhat helpless. He was thinking about how to deal with these two beauties. At this time, Qin Sheng happened to come over. Before Qin Ran and Qin Jing called out to him, Han Su took the initiative to pull Qin Sheng and shouted, "Qin Sheng, you're here at the right time. Help me think of a way." Qin Ran and Qin Jing were a little surprised. They didn't expect that the man who had flirted with them actually knew Qin Sheng. Then they understood what was going on. Perhaps this man was the friend that Qin Sheng had mentioned. After all, they were very smart. This made them somewhat disappointed. It turned out that Qin Sheng's friends were like this. What kind of friends were they? Qin Sheng did not know what was going on. He really wanted to ask them if they knew my elder sister or my younger sister. However, Han Su beat him to it. Consequently, he asked confusedly, "What's the solution?" Han Su whispered in Qin Sheng's ear, "These two beauties have stunned me. How can I get their WeChat?" Upon hearing this, Qin Sheng almost burst out laughing. In the end, he held it in and said calmly, "You have seen all kinds of beauties. Is it necessary?" Han Su sighed and said, "You won't understand this feeling. Help me think of a solution first." Qin Sheng agreed readily as he said, "Okay, let me have a try. As a brother, my happiness is in your hands," Han Su said confidently. Consequently, Han Su and his two friends stepped aside to let Qin Sheng have a try. Qin Sheng walked over slowly. Under the playful eyes of Qin Ran and Qin Jing, he suddenly shouted very loudly, "Elder sister, younger sister, my friend wants her WeChat." Chapter 507. Most of the time, women were the motivation for men to struggle. Some men succeeded because there was an excellent woman behind them. For example, Qin Sheng found Lin Su. Some men swore to be outstanding, but it might be because they were abandoned or deeply hurt by a beloved woman. Han Su seemed to be a playboy, but in fact, it was because he had not found a woman he really liked. No woman was willing to let him completely change himself for her. Therefore, Han Su seemed to live a leisurely life, but in fact, he was very lonely and lonely. Tonight, Han Su was really amazed by Qin Ran and Qin Jing. It seemed that he had not felt this way for a long time. However, he did not expect that the result would be like this, which made him feel helpless. Han Su met Song Ryu last time and thought that since Qin Sheng could hook up with such a beautiful woman, he obviously had a trump card. Therefore, he asked Qin Sheng to have a try. He was looking forward to Qin Sheng's success. Then, he could use his advantages to pursue the two beautiful women in front of him. The only problem was that he had not chosen which one to pursue. However, Qin Sheng's words directly made Han Su dumbfounded. His expression was so funny that he could not help but laugh. Han Su's two friends were also dumbfounded. They had thought that since Han Su had chosen one of them, the remaining one would be theirs, who would not want to have such a beauty for themselves. After Qin Sheng finished his words, he directly sat down beside Qin Ran and Qin Jing, ignoring the reactions of Han Su and his friends behind him. Qin Ran said impatiently, "Your friends?" Qin Sheng did not think that Han Su was a disgrace. Although he had hit on his own sister, they were friends, and he knew Han Su's character, so he did not take it seriously. If it had been someone else, Qin Sheng would not have been so polite. Therefore, Qin Sheng found it funny and nodded. Yes, he's a classmate of Tsinghua University. His name is Han Su. Qin Ran snorted and said, "You are just a playboy. I'm starting to doubt your taste in making friends." Of course, she was more joking. Perhaps because she knew that this man was Qin Sheng's friend, she was not so angry and cared about it. At this time, Qin Jing also interrupted, "Brother, if I had known this, we would not have come." Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said, Okay. It's all my fault. I'll give him a good talk later. However, maybe it's because you guys are too attractive that he can't help but come over to talk to you. I know he is not like this usually. Even if a beauty takes the initiative to throw herself into his arms, he will not pay attention to her at all." "Really?" Qin Ran said disapprovingly. Obviously, she did not believe his explanation. Qin Sheng wanted to continue chatting with Qin Ran, but Han Su, who had come to his senses, suddenly pulled Qin Sheng out of the bar. Qin Sheng asked in surprise, "Han Su, what are you doing?" Han Su said awkwardly, Come out. I have something to tell you." Qin Sheng had no choice but to follow Han Su out. His two friends also followed him out resentfully. Many people in the bar were whispering, wondering what was going on here. Outside the Lotus Bar, Han Su asked incredulously, "Lao Qin, are those two beauties really your elder sister and younger sister? Don't fool me." Qin Sheng was a little amused, but he replied firmly, "Why would I lie to you? They are my biological elder sister and cousin. They were worried that I would come out so late, so they followed me here." Han Su let out a long sigh, almost dying. He said angrily, "Damn it, this is so embarrassing. It turns out that they're your elder sister and younger sister. What the hell is going on?" Seeing Han Su's confused look, Qin Sheng held back his laughter. In the future, he would definitely make fun of Han Su about this. Since these two beauties were Qin Sheng's elder sister and younger sister, Han Su lost interest. He did not know Qin Sheng's bottom line, so he did not dare to mess around, in case he could not even be friends with him. Moreover, he knew that Qin Sheng's background was not small. Therefore, Han Su said sincerely, "Lao Qin, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Don't take it to heart. I will apologize to our elder sister and younger sister when I get in. I hope they can forgive me." After that, Han Su said to his two friends next to him, "And you, apologize to our elder sister and younger sister later. It's all your fault that I am so embarrassed today." One of Han Su's friends muttered, "Han Su, it's all your fault. Don't blame us." Han Su scolded angrily, I made friends carelessly. Qin Sheng patted Han Su's shoulder and said, "It's okay. It's just a small thing. At worst, they will despise you for a while, or I will beat you again." Han Su was so scared that he quickly dodged from Qin Sheng's side and said, "Lao Qin, you don't have to do that. Considering our relationship, you can't be serious, can you? If you are serious, the three of us can't beat you. Let's talk it over." Qin Sheng was angry and laughed at the same time. He almost kicked Han Su a few times. When they came in from outside the bar, Qin Ran and Qin Jing were laughing and chatting. Under the dim light, they were really outstanding, like a crane in a flock of chickens. After all, this kind of temperament could not be made up by makeup. After Qin Sheng sat down, Han Su and his friends walked over slowly. He said nervously, "Elder sister, younger sister, I am Han Su, Qin Sheng's good friend. I am really sorry for what happened just now. I was a little rude. Please don't take it to heart. If I made you angry, you can scold or beat me, but I won't fight back. As long as you can calm down, it's okay." Qin Ran stared at Han Su with a playful look, which really gave Han Su goosebumps. He did not dare to look into Qin Ran's eyes. As for Qin Jing, who was relatively simple, she directly snorted and turned around, ignoring Han Su, who was sincerely apologizing. Han Su hurriedly begged for mercy. "Elder sister, if you have something to say, just say it. I am afraid of you staring at me like this." In fact, Han Su did not need to be so humble at all, but he really regarded Qin Sheng as a friend. That was why he was so respectful to Qin Ran and Qin Jing. Face was not important. Only friends mattered. Qin Ran burst out laughing. Have you always been like this before? Of course, Han Su knew what she meant. He shook his head and said, Elder sister, I am not that kind of person. If you don't believe me, you can ask Qin Sheng. I am very strict. But you are really beautiful today, so I came here on impulse. Qin Ran enjoyed Han Su's praise very much, which made Qin Sheng proud. However, she still made things difficult for him. Am I only beautiful today? Han Su let out an ouch and almost slapped himself in the face. He hurriedly said, I said the wrong thing. I said the wrong thing. You are always young and beautiful. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Sit down quickly. Qin Ran felt it was enough, so she stopped teasing Han Su. This guy was quite interesting. She could tell that he was not the kind of domineering rich playboy. This matter was finally over, and Han Su was relieved. So he introduced two friends to Qin Sheng and the others, who were best friends since childhood. One was called Liu Bin, who was an investor in Beijing, and the other was called Huang Jiang, who worked in a scientific research institute in Beijing. Han Su ordered 2 bottles of beer and cocktails for Qin Ran and Qin Jing. The two beauties did not want to drink. Today, they just accompanied Qin Sheng. Han Su and his 2 friends punished themselves by drinking a glass of beer first, which was a formal apology to Qin Ran and Qin Jing. They had done a good job, which made Qin Ran and Qin Jing feel a little embarrassed. They talked about some trivial things, such as what they were doing recently. Han Su was still the same. Most of the time, he hung around in Beijing and occasionally stayed in Tianjin for 2 days. After a few bottles of beer, Han Su pulled Qin Sheng and whispered, Lao Qin, do you know why I called you out? Qin Sheng squinted and said, Say it. What can you do? You must have something to do with what happened last time. F***, why are you so smart? I have no sense of accomplishment at all. Han Su was speechless. He was going to keep Qin Sheng guessing. How could Qin Sheng guess it so easily? Qin Sheng said happily, Let's get down to business. Han Su drank a glass of beer and lit a cigarette. However, when he saw Qin Jing frowning slightly, he quickly put out the cigarette and said slowly, How should I say it? Didn't you go to Xi'an after the incident last time? I've been secretly investigating this matter. I've spent a lot of effort and resources. Finally, God helps those who wait. I really learned something. I won't talk about the process. It is nothing more than spending money or asking for help. But the results shocked me. Since Han Su could talk about it so seriously, Qin Sheng knew it was not simple. He whispered, What result? In the thing last time, actually their real target was not me at all. I was just a pawn to deceive people. Those people's real target was you. Han Su said bluntly. Qin Sheng's expression changed slightly. As I expected, Qin Sheng's words showed that he had already guessed it, which made Han Su very speechless. After all, he had spent a lot of effort on it. Originally, he wanted to show off in front of Qin Sheng, who knew that Qin Sheng had already guessed it. So he was speechless. F***, you guessed it? Although Qin Sheng had guessed this possibility, when he knew the result, he was still a little shocked. He did not expect it to be true. He said calmly, There were too many strange things that night. If the target was you, those thugs should have gone for you. Why did they come for me? I had to think about it more. Although I had guessed this possibility, I did not expect it to be true. So, Han Su, thank you. Han Su was a little embarrassed. He said, Don't mention it. Let's not talk about this. The main thing is that I don't want to be at a disadvantage. Even if I was beaten, I should know who did it. Qin Sheng could not wait to ask. Let's not talk about this. Have you found out who is behind it? Of course I have. If I didn't, I wouldn't have come here to ask for your reward. Let's see how you thank me later. At least you should treat me to 8 or 10 big meals. Han Su said proudly. Qin Sheng laughed and said, These are all small things. 100 meals is not a problem. Hurry up and tell me who is behind it. Gu Yongning, Shui Ke. Han Su was silent for a moment and then said very seriously, because when he knew these two people, he was also quite shocked. He did not expect that Qin Sheng would offend such people. Obviously, Qin Sheng had not heard of these names, let alone offending them. If they were Yin Chaozong, Chu Huanxi, or the like, Qin Sheng would naturally know what was going on. So he said in surprise, Gu Yoning, Shueke? From Qin Sheng's expression, Han Su knew what was going on. He said in surprise, Ah, you don't know them. How is it possible? Then why do they trouble you? Qin Sheng squinted and was lost in thought. There was only one possibility. So Qin Sheng turned to Qin Ran and said, Sister, do you know Gu Yongning and Shueko? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.